lot of people go through life doing things badly. Racing's important to men who do it well. When you're racing, it's life. Anything that happens before or after, it's just waiting.
Matt Williams got a brilliant start from the third row of the grid.
He's gone, he's hit him, he's straight off at the chase.
A half-second lead over the sizzling car in the background.
He has it. Oh, he's round on the last lap.
There's a massive accident.
Next to the inside, what a move, what a move.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to round number 2 of the Automobilista Australia GT3 World Series Championship for 2020. We're in Brazil, more specifically about 600 kilometres to the north-northwest of the capital Rio de Janeiro, on the outskirts of a little town called Curvelo, and there's a little circuit there called the Circuito dos Cristais. It's a tricky little circuit, and the 90-minute torture test that awaits this ever-growing field of GT3 drivers and their respective machinery is going to be a magnificent one tonight. Come along, and for every little bit of problem that the world throws at us over the course of the last couple of weeks, it's great to have you aboard. It's great to have you watching this back. If you're watching it live or watching it back at a little bit later on, we thank you for your patronage and we thank you for giving us some of your time to bring this broadcast to you. My name is Steve DeVries and I'm anchoring the commentary team here from the Automobilista Australia pit bunker as part of the Outworld Broadcasting team. It's good to welcome the commentators alongside me back for another bout in a commentary box, and the first one of those is seasoned veteran of GT3 commentary here in Automobilista Australia, and it's good to welcome him back for the very first time in 2020, and that's Josh Baggs.
It's good to be back, Steve. Good to be back here for GT3. Missed the first round, but yeah, back with a vengeance and going to enjoy a bit of racing since there's none on TV at the moment, which is very disappointing. So I'm glad to be able to have some more to watch.
Yep, you and I both are very, very happy to be broadcasting some of this in our own personal time. And the second of those commentators who joined me in the booth 2 weeks ago and is back for another one is Michael Zalavari.
Evening, Nether. Evening, Baggsy. Evening, everyone. Yeah, I'm really excited. Just looking at practice at the moment, and we're going to be in for a great race today, considering how many people we've got, the track we've got, the times that have been setting. Man, I'm already so excited. This is crazy.
This is a huge field. This is a field at the moment that we have not seen the likes of for some time. We're getting upwards of about 23, 24 cars in the server at the moment. It truly is magnificent to see. This is actually looks like it's set to be a record field for GT3 in Automobilista Australia. And I've been doing this 2.5 years now, and I can't think of another time, Baggsy, that you and I have ever witnessed a sheer number of cars like we're seeing at the moment.
No, we've had some big fields, we've had some small fields as well, but I think we're on track to beat our current best by 7 or 8 at least at this point. Currently 26 people in the server at last time of looking. So yeah, it's going to be a big race, and let's see how the game holds up and the server holds up. Should be okay. But if you do see anything a bit crazy, it's probably the game struggling.
Yep, well, it's speaking of struggling at the moment, it's giving me a little bit of a headache at the minute. I'm having a couple of issues getting myself back into the game. There's been a few very, very late bits of trouble going on with AMS for my stream at the moment, but we'll push on in the hope that we can get everything back up and running in the next couple of minutes. First and foremost, let's take a little bit of a look at the GT3 calendar just so you can see what the landscape looks like here in Automobilista Australia. Of course, we had the first 60-minute challenge at Silverstone last round, 2 rounds ago, and a number of circuits on the calendar that we are visiting for the very first time. So the first one of those is tonight, the Circuito dos Cristais, as we said, in Brazil. The Red Bull Ring is another one we're visiting for the first time. So too Ricardo Tormo in Spain, and then Watkins Glen at the end of it all is another circuit we have not yet visited before. So plenty of new calendar tracks there in Automobilista Australia, plenty of things that we are looking forward to over the course of this year. Probably the one I'm actually looking forward to the most, gentlemen, is Watkins Glen right at the very end.
Yeah, that will be that is one of the best tracks for these types of cars in the world. Just the long sweeping corners, brilliant, brilliant sort of track to really test these sort of cars. And yeah, that'll be a great way to cap off what's already looking like a great season.
Bagsy, your thoughts?
I'm looking forward to Monza personally. It's one of my favourites, and something like Ricardo Tormo as well, a track that probably a lot of people might not have seen too much, especially not in GT3 racing.
No, definitely not. That's the MotoGP layout that normally hosts the finale of the MotoGP each and every year. But I agree with you too, actually. Monza could be a very interesting one. There's been the scene of quite a lot of, let's just put it bluntly, chaos over the last couple of years. We've had some really, really ripper finishes in GT3, and in actual fact, in any of the categories that have raced at Monza over the last 2 years in Automobilista Australia, absolutely phenomenal circuit and some of the best racing we've actually seen. The last time we were there, we actually had a one-lap sprint finish after the safety car came out very, very late and time expired while we were on under safety car conditions. So that was a very, very, very close finish with any one of about half a dozen cars could have won it back then. So that is one that we will definitely be keeping an eye on with vested interest. The point situation coming into tonight. So with only one round on the board, you can see there, Lewis Wedding heads the standings, and we have to say, Michael, brilliant, brilliant strategy call from Lewis Wedding under the very early safety car last round to take the chocolates in that last race.
Yeah, but it wasn't just the strategy call that made that race for Lewis Wedding. He had to work hard to come through the field after that first safety car, and he did. And that, was what might have been for Xeris then. Yeah, he ran into a few problems throughout the race to end up in fourth position. What you can see on the screen at the moment is the differentiation between the pro-rated drivers and the Silver Cup. So from Matchwas backwards is all the Silver Cup drivers, represented with the silver background to the number. And so Matchwas leads that championship with 8 points, and then it's Wayne Spencer, Ozrob, Lime Mitch, and Luke Joyner.
Yeah, very important that you differentiated there between the gold and the silver cup drivers. Two separate championships, but the points are awarded where you finish in the order. So in the event that a silver cup driver happens to get on the podium by some virtue of a miracle or something happening with the way the races pan out, they will be awarded the points that you would normally see for a third place finish. It's just the way that the point structure works. It's a very fair structure. So throughout the season, keep an eye out as those little logos behind the numbers that people are positioned at will change depending on where they are in the points rankings. Over to the team points now. Similar layout, Bagsy. We've got only 10 teams that have scored points by virtue of the number of drivers that finished the last race, but already shaping up to be a bit tight in mid-pack there.
Yeah, we've got 5 teams covered by 7 points, which is that's one of those things where this is going to change a lot. We're only one round in, and it only takes one person to not score points for a team to really drop you right down the standings.
Yeah, precisely. And with the way that the GT3 lottery was structured as well, there's a gold driver for every team, and there is also a pair of Silver Cup drivers per team. So the aim being to boost the overall competitiveness of the teams, but also to bring some of the Silver Cup drivers up to a more standard that's a little bit closer to the gold class drivers and improve the racing. So that's the logic behind it there. One of the early contenders we suspected would be right up the front was Gravel Shed Racing. That's one of my picks from earlier in the season. Quite a good pairing with Steve Bolger and Ozrob, and just looking to see who the last one is on that list. It's actually Matt Schwass, who's the leader in Silver Cup. So quite a strong pairing there. The previous champions, Brenton Foley and Lewis Wedding, are there in third and second place, respectively, heading up those two teams, BC Racing and Team Antara Loose Sim Sport. Lewis Wedding actually flying the flag solo tonight. His teammate of Mike Coulston is absent, unfortunately stuck in the UK as part of the COVID-19 drama that is unfolding around the world right now. Well, gentlemen, a lot of people probably haven't had a chance to take a look at this circuit in great detail, but here it is. It is a 4.4 kilometre long circuit as the video behind the scenes just winds its way along the front straight. Michael, this is a circuit that has come about in the TCAC series on a once or twice. It's not something we've seen in GT3 though. This is going to be a real challenge for one lap, let alone just for 90 minutes.
Yeah, it's got a lot of character in it, and one thing that I really like as I was cutting some laps earlier tonight is that there's all these corners that encourage you to just try and take a little more. So if you're really brave, you can get a lot out, but there's a very, very close tipping point to where it starts to bite you on the rear. We haven't had GT3 racing here before. We haven't really done a lot of Automobilista racing for Automobilista Australia, AMS Oz here before, and a lot of drivers tonight have really struggled to come to terms with the track. There's been a lot of complaining during practice and during some of the earlier sessions that people were struggling to get a handle on it, and it's really going to throw the cat amongst the pigeons here, because it's something that's going to really challenge the drivers, not only on their one lap pace but also their consistency and their racecraft.
Bagsy, what are your impressions of this circuit? I mean, you've been out there having a bit of a look at just the actual general layout, watching the cars go around. It's got some really nice elevation change, this circuit. It hasn't got very many pinch points though, so there's quite a lot of long radius corners where that right-hand side of the car is going to get a fair old beating.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see people's tyre choices, especially during this. Sometimes we have seen GT3 where you'll have a race where you need a couple of stops, so you'll need to take fuel twice, but the 10 seconds you save by not taking tyres can really make the difference. But it's that trade-off. So if there's too much wear on that right-hand side, especially if you've tweaked your setup slightly, maybe, it will mean that you're going to have to take tyres both times. And if you don't, you're going to be absolutely floundering by the end of your stint.
Yeah, we've seen that on a number of occasions, haven't we? I think the last one that comes to mind was, Spa-Francorchamps with Josh Ben, who accidentally, I think, forgot to take tyres in that 90-minute race, and he really paid the penalty in that middle stint. That really put him out of contention. So it's going to be very interesting to see who elects to take tyres and when they elect to take them. It could just be a simple case of maybe even changing fronts if rears are not doing too badly, but that'll be an interesting one to see how that pans out. Nonetheless, it's going to be a two-stop race at the bare minimum, judging by the fact that it's 90 minutes, and normally these cars are set up to get about 30 minutes or thereabouts a stint. How are you going to go about saving fuel around here is going to be an interesting one as well. Around the estimated 45 to 49 laps, and the most important thing, as we alluded to earlier, there are no GT3 track records currently set for this circuit. This is the first time that we are visiting here, so there are about to be a pair of records set tonight, one for qualifying and one for the race session. So we'll keep an eye out for those as the night progresses on. Now, for the moment, gentlemen, we're just having a little bit of a drama with the broadcast side of things over here at the moment. Automobilista has decided just to become a little bit of a nightmare for myself in the box as part of the camera control at the moment. So we're in the process of just getting that sorted. It's probably about another 10 or so minutes away, but hopefully we can just, call this a little bit of a radio show for the moment. Let's have a little bit of a look at qualifying as it gets underway. And of course, if you are liking the broadcast and you want to follow along with the live timing as things are happening, you can tune in to the broadcast timing at amsoz.liveraces.com. And there will be a long list at the moment of about 23 cars that are just starting to wind their way out onto this challenging 4.4K circuit.
Already we're seeing a little bit of argy-bargy between some of the cars just forming up on their outlap, actually. Brenton Foley, one of the practice pace setters, in fact, the driver with the fastest lap in practice, a 43.5, just moving, I think it was Brenton Ross out of the way, or Wayne Whitmore, one of the Bentleys, just in the first sector, just giving him a little bit of a touch to move him out the way. So we'll be able to see a pretty good benchmark of where people are pretty soon. At the moment, no one's on a fast lap. The first sector should be at about a 35-second first sector, I believe. And then a bit further on, about the same. It's pretty evenly split, this track, in terms of sector times. So 35-ish first sector, 33-ish second sector, 33 second last sector as well. So that's the times to beat as we start our first flying laps.
So first man to get the times underway is going to be Brenton Foley, and then behind him it looks like we've got Brendan Ross, as you said there, Michael, and we go down the order, Wayne Whitmore and Mitch Hathaway are the first 4 cars. Believe it or not, with 23 cars, or actually 20, my memory serves me correctly, 25 cars now in the service. So this is really getting upwards of magnificent right now. It doesn't look like there's a lot of space on this circuit looking at the track map on live races, does it, Gents? Or actually more in fact Bagsy, because it's a 4.4k circuit, but it almost looks like 25 cars just chews up an awful lot of real estate.
Oh, it really does when you consider that you've only got about, well, it's a minute 45-second lap. So really, you've got 105 seconds and 25 cars, essentially a car every 4 seconds or so, which is not a lot of space, and that's if everyone's perfectly spaced out all nicely. At the moment, you can see coming through the second sector, we've got a line of cars about 7 long that is just absolutely, yeah, it's going to be very hard to get a fast lap in here.
And Foley's got traffic.
Minutes.
And Foley's got traffic too. So he had, that's one of the which car was that just ran wide there? That I think might have been Turmo, might have been looks like Thomas Cole actually, who's a newbie into the server this week. So Brent Foley had the lights on. He was on a hot lap, so his hot lap may have been compromised here. The benchmarks that we were seeing in the practice sessions were in the 44s. Foley's gone into the 43s. That's a 43 point. Is that an 826 if I'm looking at the other screen that we've got sitting there. So even though his lap was slightly compromised, not too bad, Steve Bolger's actually bettered him in the first sector to the tune of about a tenth, but he's about 3/10 further away in Sector 2, and actual fact, Steve Bolger purples the last sector as well, ends up about a tenth and a little bit of drift of Foley, and then came Xeris and Turmo, the next gentleman to set laps.
Foley can definitely go a bit faster, because we saw right at the end in the death in practice, he did get a 43.5 out, I believe, or definitely low mid 43s.
43.539 for Foley. Bolger has actually set his fastest lap of the evening with that one, and I think Foley's actually jumped into the pits and he's going to take another go through. But Bolger's already improving on this lap. He's 2/10 up on his personal best to the first sector, which is 2/10 up on everyone in the first sector, setting another purple first sector as he comes through Sector 2. Very sweeping section in Sector 2. A lot of corners that really load up the front end of the car as we're watching Steve Bolger go through a bit of the tighter chicane there. Really nice drops, basically drops you in. He hits the second sector marker and he's up on his PB, but again, down in that middle sector. Doesn't seem to have it hooked up as much as Brenton Foley did in his Viper.
No, in actual fact, I think that middle sector was actually slower than his previous middle sector on the first flying lap that he did as well. So, just again, as you said, Michael, just that little sector, there's plenty of corners there that load up the front end of the car, and it can be a little bit difficult sometimes. As Bolger has looped it, he's looped it off the final corner. So that's not a hairpin on the final corner, but it is sort of like it's a type of corner that cambers in slightly. So it, as you said, one of those corners that likes to try and suck you in and challenge you to just put your foot down a little bit more and a little bit more until the point where it gets too much, and then you either loop the car around or you understeer off the track.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's bowled in very, very nicely. It's actually probably the slowest corner on the track, maybe in contention with the hairpin on the inside of the circuit. And that's kind of a testament to how much this track really flows and how much you have to really commit to these corners and get them all correct in sequence. As we've got, I think Will Devonish has just had a little bit of a spin. A lot of drivers have put in their first flying lap, their first lap in anger. So at the moment, our top 10, as we're about halfway through the session, is Foley, Bolger, Xeris, Ozrob, Lime Mitch, Devonish, Noah Tara, Roadhog, Steve Burko, and Wayne Spencer. And at the moment, no one's really gotten to as close to the top 4 as they were in the practice session. The top 4 at the moment are very well spread out and also a decent amount away from the rest of the field.
Bagsy, who's impressing you so far out there at the moment? The one person that I've picked up so far is Lime Mitch, because he is one of the drivers that's in the Silver Cup category and who's already up to P5 with a pretty handy time. Who's impressing you so far, or who has not sort of set the timing screens alight as you would have expected to at this early going?
Oh yeah, Lime Mitch definitely one who has moved up from last season in his pace. He was generally sort of mid to late pack driver, but he did have some occasional jumps up towards the front. But yeah, now he's setting some much more consistent times, and threatening the top 5 the whole time. We are still waiting on a few people to get some of this stuff in. Dwayne Davies down 17th is interesting for me. He's a fair way down. And 20th, Lewis Wedding still yet to set a time. He's on a lap at the moment, and it's looking like a fast one, but he's once again leaving it fairly late in the session to get a timeout. Potentially traffic's caused him issues so far.
Yeah, that lap for Lewis Wedding at the moment is a second outside the fastest, so I think it might just be setting up to have a go for it this time around, as he has only got a little bit of a traffic ahead of him as he comes out of the last corner with the headlights ablaze. So we should be seeing a quick lap from Lewis Wedding this time around.
Yeah, so his opening lap's a 45.0, so that's actually good enough for 5th at the moment, but as you said, he's just probably gearing himself up to have another decent crack at a lap time. What was his sector times like on that last lap? They weren't too bad. There's no purple sectors in there, but as you said, maybe just easing the car into it, getting a feel, getting the tyres up to pressure. Still a pretty quick lap for a first real flying lap if he is getting himself going. He just had a little moment there, I think, down at the top end of the circuit at turns 3 and 4, and he's actually run wide. Yeah. So that's ruined the lap for him. But still, 5th is a pretty respectable starting point. He's just bumped Line Mitch down 1 spot, so they're sharing provisionally the 3rd row at the moment.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised at how much Lewis Wedding is struggling with this track. He hasn't actually set a 44 in the session tonight at all, including in practice. So that actually puts him with the 6th best time for the night, behind the likes of Will Devonish, Ozrob, Steve Bolger, Xeris, and of course Brendan Foley. So I would have expected a bit more from Lewis Wedding. So I'm a little surprised at that.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. He is, of course, flying solo at the moment. He's one of a couple of drivers flying solo for tonight's proceedings. As we said before, his teammate Mike Coulston's fortunately stuck in the UK. A couple of other solo entrants that are running. Roadhog, Xeris from ARW running in 2 separate cars. Ooh. And then, of course, I think Brenton Foley running solo tonight as well with his teammate Cracker, I don't think, is out there at the moment. So he was a late withdrawal as well. So despite the fact we've still got plenty of solo runners in the field, a number of drivers are still doing remarkably well.
Yeah, just on Foley, actually. He was up to the 2nd sector mark on his pole-sitting lap, and then just got a little wide through turn 17. One of those corners in the final sector, just got a little wide, got onto the grass, and yeah, threw it all away. So he's jumped into the pits, put in some new tyres. Brendan Ross has jumped into the top 10 now with a 146 flat. And we've still got, we're still waiting on a lap from Brian Walsh, John McDonald, Billy Dougal-Salonga, and Gary Neville, who's joined the server in the last few minutes.
Bagsy, one of the people that we probably have to welcome back, and we haven't seen him in the GT3 machinery for some time, is Brock Harvey. Pretty respectable effort so far, 12th place on the boards.
Yeah, he's going quite well. It looks like he's back in the pits. He's one of only 3 people in the pits at the moment, so everyone else out on track. 22 cars. Scratch that, 21. Wayne's just gone back into the pits. Yeah, considering the amount of time he's probably had compared to some of the others, he wasn't participating last season. He's jumped straight back in and is doing pretty well. No,
I tend to agree. He's actually doing very, very well for a first run in the machinery for some time. He's, of course, it's the MHRT team, the Matt Harvey Repair and Tune team, which houses himself, Lime Mitch, and Aaron Thomas as well. Now, Aaron Thomas is down in 17th, and, of course, Lime Mitch is a bit further ahead, currently in 7th, having been bumped down another notch. Who did that to him? Looks like Will Devonish jumped ahead of him and actually split himself and Lewis Wedding at that point. PB for Ozrob as he crosses the line, but Bagsy, what have you just seen out there?
Speaking of Lewis Wedding, he's up on his current time going through sector number 1, but still 5/10 down on Brenton Foley's best lap time. Now, I'm not going to start counting Lewis Wedding. You're definitely not going to count Lewis Wedding out, even if he's a bit off the pace at the moment from the 1.2 from the leader, but even then I would say that he has a good chance of winning this race.
New fastest
goes
to
the top.
Goes to the top.
143.681.
So that's a nice little time, that. And on top of that, it is the fastest lap time of the night as well. So 1:43.681 for Steve Bolger. Only purple in the final sector, though. So that's saying something, isn't it? As everyone likes to refer to, you've got your delta time, which is the one where you put all your best sectors together, and that's the lap time that you theoretically could actually do. But to go top of the timesheets and only purple one sector, it's pretty good.
Weddings lost it in the final corner from the looks of it, and I'm not sure if that was him. Did he have to avoid Foley there? Was that a BCR car?
I had eyes on Foley as he was just crawling through the final sector looking for a bit of space, and he just was on the exit in that little chute between the Boomerang and Curve 16, so between the last 3 corners. And right when Lewis Wedding was loading up the car, that's where Foley was positioned. So yeah, real unfortunate there for Lewis Wedding to stumble across the Dodge Viper at where he did.
Well, he's still going to have some time. He's still going to have some time to get another lap in, and he is actually leaving the pits now. But this is really going to be touch and go.
Very, very close.
Osrob's just jumped Xeris into 3rd place. So I think that's his final go at it. Yes, he's gone back into the pits. And Foley is on a quick lap as well. He's up on the purple time to the 2nd sector with a purple 1st sector as well. But Bolger's gone quick as well.
Yeah, Bolger has done a purple middle sector. Foley's done a purple 1st sector this time as well. What's Steve Bolger up to out there right now? So he's just gone to the top with a 1:43.494. So he lowers the benchmark again, and only again with a single purple sector on that lap. Now this was a man. He's actually just clouded the wall on his on another lap, so he won't get another one. But that was a man, Steve Bolger, who had a bit of a chip on his shoulder because he was very, very quick at Silverstone, but just got caught out when Lewis Wedding made that strategy call. Did finish on the podium at the end of the day, Steve Bolger, but he's been searching for this GT3 win for quite some time, hasn't he, Bagsy?
Yeah, as far as I know, he hasn't had a single GT3 win yet, has he? He's come and been competing up at the front most times, but I don't think he's had a win yet.
No, certainly hasn't had a win yet. He had the pole, if you remember correctly, at the Fuji round last year, and unfortunately got taken out at the very first corner, and that pretty much ruined his race. He was very, very quick, so that was the one that we expected that he was possibly going to win. And he'd been on the charge a few times as well. I think Interlagos, there was one where he was tracking quite nicely and unfortunately didn't end up on the top step of the rostrum at that point.
Lewis Wedding's made it across the line with 5 seconds to go.
Oof.
And Will Devonish has made it across with 1 second to go. So he's the last person who can potentially set a flying lap.
Yeah.
And it looks like he's continuing on. So Will Devonish and Lewis Wedding will be last across the line.
Noah Taro improves on his lap time to go 8th. So he's the first to finish the session. I think I saw the other Nissan in the background, which would be of... who would that be now? Not sure, actually. That would be Liam Spencer, and he's finished up his session now. He finishes in... Don't actually see where he is.
He's currently 10th on the road. Lewis Wedding's thrown it away. So Lewis Wedding's had a major issue on his first next flying lap, and he's thrown that lap away. Liam Spencer's finished in 10th, and that's a debut entry for him in GT3. He did do a little bit of running in the Super 2 round at Simmons Plains a couple of weeks ago in his father's absence. So father and son in the server tonight, so that's Wayne Spencer and Liam Spencer. Good opening. And in actual fact, if I look down the order, where is Wayne Spencer?
Wayne's just ahead of him in 9th.
He certainly is.
Sirius
so
has jumped up ahead of Osrob at the death here to get 3rd place.
I think the last driver
very small amount.
Yeah, I think the last driver on track at the moment is Will Devonish. He's 3/10 up on his personal best at the moment as he comes into the last complex of corners. Let's see where this puts Will Devonish as we see the
Zach Ross
Racing livery Lamborghini.
Zach Ross has gone up to 18th. So right, he was the second last man on track, and then we cut across to Will Devonish, who is streaking to the line now. Does he improve on 6th place? He does by 1 spot. So he actually he found a lot of time. He found nearly 8/10 on that lap. So that's a mega final lap for Will Devonish. I'm a bit disappointed to everybody in the live stream that unfortunately we didn't get a chance to bring the pictures to you. this is what Automobilista does to us sometimes. And we unfortunately got the live pictures back pretty much just at the end of qualifying, literally after the clock had gone zero. So, as John McDonald is there, welcome to Outworld Radio. This is similar to Radio Le Mans, and I know that Michael, you and Kiwi Chris have had to do this a couple of times in TCAC commentary as well when things go awry.
Yeah. Nice plug to Radio Le Mans. I actually met the people from Radio Le Mans. They're lovely people, just by the way. But yes, we're doing an old school here so far tonight. Yeah, what a session though. At the end, we had 3 cars break the 144 barrier, headlined by Steve Bolger with a 143.49 for the fastest time of the evening so far. And then Ozrob, Will Devonish in the 44s. And then Lewis Wedding out in 6th place with a 45.0. So a full second and a half away from the pole time for Lewis Wedding, which is a little surprising to me. Yeah, and to cap that all off as well, 24 cars in the server at the end of the race, end of the session rather, with 22 of them setting competitive lap time. So we should be in for a cracking race if we get that many cars onto the start line.
Well, it sure is, and it looks like the warm-up session is only going to run for 5 minutes. So thankfully, that for us, that means we get to get the racing a little bit quicker than we always have been. If you're just joining the broadcast, we apologise again for not having the live pictures. It's just some things that throw up every now and again. But what we might endeavour to do is take the audio, I think, and maybe we'll do a separate little qualifying session with the replay files, and we'll get that up over the course of the weekend sometime soon. And I'm now getting a whole bunch of other errors as well, so this is going swimmingly for me over here at the moment as Automobilista continues to give me an awful lot of grief. I'll cut back to holding pictures as well, and getting some awful messages coming out of Automobilista right now. So this unfortunately becomes a little bit of a difficult pill to swallow for myself, not being able to bring the broadcast. I'm not 100% sure what on earth is going on. We've done a verification of files over here. We've done usually everything that we need to do to get this going, but for some weird reason or another, it just does not want to cooperate.
What a weird one. That's really unfortunate.
It's and considering nothing has really changed from a couple of weeks ago, other than the mod files going in, but everybody else is in the server. Everybody else seems to have plenty of things that they're choosing, and we're just not quite sure what on earth is going on right now.
You were in the server as well earlier tonight, so
for quite some time as well, which was a bit of a weird one. What we might do at this point in time is we might take a very, very short break for a little bit, see if we can figure out some of these issues, and we'll be back very, very shortly, and hopefully with a race session. Welcome back, everybody. You are watching the 90 Minutes of Brazil, which is the second round of the Automobilista Australia GT3 Series, the endurance discipline, as we like to call it here in AMS Oz. It's been running in it's fifth season, and we've had all sorts of fun over the last 2 years, Bagsy, haven't we? We've had not only just GT3s, but we've had the LMP2 cars in there for a stint as well.
Yeah, we've had all sorts. I think I prefer it as a sort of not one make series, but one class series over the two class series. It was a interesting experiment, but I feel this is the superior format because you still have a variety of cars, but you've got them all on a relatively level playing field.
And Michael, I think the sentiments are probably echoed from your point of view, I think, as well, given you are the knowledge bank of everything endurance racing around the world. You've seen it all in the World Endurance Championship, but do you prefer the single class format, or do you prefer the mixed up format like we see in Le Mans and IMSA and that sort of thing?
I have to go against Bagsy. I prefer the multi-class format. I think having to navigate traffic, both passing and being passed, is definitely a skill which adds to the endurance format. So while GT3 racing, like single class GT3 racing, is fantastic and I love it, there is just something special about watching spaceships navigate these GT3 cars throughout an endurance race. So I'd love to see a mixed class sim racing series run through Automobilista, but I know how difficult that is and how many problems that causes. So maybe not in the immediate future.
No, it was an interesting challenge, I think, Bagsy. We go all the way back to, I think it was 2018 when we had the LMP2 cars and the GT3 cars together. We had some fantastic battles. We had some really, really good and close racing. And if we go all the way back to the very last race of that season, when Stairs was with us in the commentary box, and the way that championship finished up, that was a series that you just could not script the finish to any better, could you?
Yeah, it was very enjoyable, and I do like mixed class for real world racing, but for this, it does bring up just a lot of issues, and you get the things where you get some of your good drivers go to the higher class and some go to the lower class of cars because that's what they want to drive, and then you miss out on those battles between sets of good drivers that you'd normally see battling each other, but they just end up ages apart because one's in a much faster car.
It is hard to keep track of the battles when things are going on like that too, and I think, Michael, you'll probably attest to this as well when it comes to multiple endurance formats around the country, keeping tabs on things such as inter-class battles, GT3D versus GT3, Le Mans, and or in our case, Pro and Silver Cup, let alone having a completely different make and model of machinery as well. It can be an awful lot of brain power just to keep up with who's racing against who.
Yeah, exactly right. And I think a very clear example of what you've just said is if you look at the European Le Mans series or the Asian Le Mans series, something that always happens is the P3 class, which is the bottom prototype class, always tends to fly under the radar. And the reason for that is it hasn't got the star named drivers that you would expect to see in like the GT cars or the P2 cars. And the strategy component to it is extremely complicated. They have a minimum of 3 minimum pit stops, timed pit stops, sorry. So what you can get is you can get cars who take all their timed pit stops very early and then come back through the field, or cars that bank up their timed pit stops and take them later on the race. And what happens while you're watching GT3 battles and prototype battles is that class just kind of gets lost in the ether, and then all of a sudden 10 minutes from the end you're like, oh wait, who's leading? So you can definitely lose battles, lose classes. You've got to be paying a lot closer attention. But on the other hand, if you've got all that data in front of you and you've got the ability to keep track of it, it's pretty fun.
Well, speaking
you got to need a spreadsheet and a lap counter to follow some of the racing sometimes. But yeah, I like it. I like it a lot.
Well, speaking of keeping tabs on things, and with regards to pit stops and taking stops early, one thing that a lot of drivers seem to be getting done at this point in time in the warm-up session is getting practice on those pit-ins, Bagsy, because that's very, very important here. You're going to have to stop twice, But being a circuit that's quite unfamiliar to a lot of drivers, and a lot of drivers already actually throwing up the complaint flag at the moment, not happy with the circuit, but also not happy with their front tyre, you've got to make sure you can get on and off pit road pretty well here. Because it comes up, look at that line, the line where Mitch Hathaway just came up to, that set of traffic cones back there. It is actually a fairly long pit lane at pit lane speed when you think about it.
Yeah, and you ask any driver, that time spent tottering down pit lane at slow speeds is probably their least favourite part of the race. But it's sort of, I like hearing all these complaints about the track from drivers, because if they're complaining about it, it means they're uncomfortable, and that means the racing's going to be a bit more interesting.
I would agree with that one wholeheartedly. Michael, what are you saying?
I can't understand why people would complain about this track. It's awesome. I mean, it's challenging, sure, but it's such a fun track to drive. I was having an absolute blast out there spinning at every corner earlier tonight.
I think the person that's on pole right now would probably be echoing your sentiments as well. That's Steve Bolger, who of course is, by virtue of getting pole position tonight, has actually set the new or the very, very first qualifying lap record for GT3 machinery around here in Automobilista Australia. For the record, for those playing at home, it was a 1 minute 43.494, and hopefully we'll see some times get very, very close to that in the race session. I wouldn't be surprised to see a few people get within a couple of tenths of that. There are a number of records in Automobilista Australia where the race lap record is actually faster than the qualifying lap record, which seems a bit strange on paper when you look at it, but then when you actually investigate a little bit further and you see some of the ways that qualifying has been done over the years. For example, in Super 2 and Supercars last year, it was a one or two lap shootout type philosophy where you really didn't have a full 15 minutes to try and set your best lap. You really had to get out there and get the job done ASAP, and then it turns out over the course of a race distance, some people were actually able to set quicker records by virtue of running at a more consistent pace or running with the slipstream of somebody's help and things like that. So when the records eventually get published up on Automobilista Australia on Facebook, you'll actually see that there are quite a number of records that don't look really legit, but in actual fact, that's the reason why they are that way.
Yeah, exactly right. Qualifying is where you've got to give it your all, and sometimes it doesn't quite come off. Whereas in a race, you've got that time to have a go at keeping that consistency and really...
Would you believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, if my eyes do not deceive me, there is a record field of 26 cars in this server as we speak. We have not seen anything like this before in Automobilista Australia when it comes to GT3 racing. Quite incredible and quite a huge pat on the back, well and truly deserved by every member of the AMS Oz community that's got out and supported this series this year. Thank you very, very much, guys, and please put on a brilliant show for us. And as I said at the top of the broadcast, in the midst of everything that's going on in the world and with COVID-19 infecting just about every corner of the globe, the one thing that it hasn't infected is the spirit thing that we can all look forward to over the course of the next couple of weeks and months. Bagsy, this grid,
Branded Viper,
which I don't think is actually right, because we're looking to see where Steve Bolger is. But you're right.
Yeah, Bolger doesn't appear to be.
I think he's further down the order.
He's in 22nd place.
So something's happened. I'm not sure what's going on here, but we'll keep going as it stands.
All right, we'll look into that. So revised order: Brendan Foley in first, followed by Xeris, also of ARW, in that coloured. It's certainly an interesting coloured car. Never really liked that colour. Ozrob in the JP Sims Shed branded car for Gravel Shed Racing, followed by Wedding Crashers Motorsport driver Will Devonish in 4th place, ahead of the Wedding man, Lewis Wedding, who is in 5th place and the current championship leader, having won the only race so far this season. Lime Mitch is in his lime green BMW and right up the field. Wayne in his Ferrari there. He is looking resplendent in that Italian black, white, red and green. Got the motor car for Liam Spencer in 8th place. Roadhog in 9th place, another ARW alumni. Brendan Ross in the Bentley, I believe the only Bentley in the field If I just have a quick look
First
down
one,
the field.
first of two.
Sorry,
Wayne
there's
Whitmore
two
the second.
Bentleys. Wayne Whitmore has another one. Luke Joyner in 11th place. Gary Neville in 12th. BDS is meant to be in 13th, but does not appear to be on the grid at the current time. Steve Burko in the only Lexus of the field. Zach Ross in the first Mercedes down in 15th, followed by the next Mercedes of Mitch Hathaway. Aaron Thomas in 17th. Termo in 18th. As we've reset back to warm up, so I believe that's due to a couple of people being in the wrong position.
Oh, I think you might be right there, Bagsy. That was a very, very good summary right up until the point where we looks like have been reset back to the warm-up session. So
It's
maybe
okay. I'll get a second run at going through all that.
I think you're probably right. We'll get a second attempt at having a look at that in the next little bit. But no, you were doing very, very well, I think, time management-wise up until that point to get through the order. I'm just going to take a little bit of a look just to see what seems to be happening. We are getting a few people with some vehicle collision mismatches. I think they may be looking to possibly reset the grid as well. Maybe there were a few people that had, as you said, Bagsy, they were out of position and may need to be put back into position. Now Billy Dougal Salonga coming in, it's now up to 27 cars. So there was, I think there may very well be a couple of drivers that have, as I said, come in awfully late and just have to be put in their rightful spot. And I can see that a few of the admins look like they're just working behind the scenes now just to try and sort everything out. There are a few drivers with some vehicle mismatches, but when you've got a grid this size, I think anything is sort of bound to happen. The one challenge that they had during the week, the admins, was given the sheer amount of cars that were in the pack and that people wanted to go racing, they had to actually assign pit groups to everybody to make sure that people were from teams were sharing with the right people, that there wasn't cars in the pits trying to land on top of each other and things like that. It's not an easy task for a lot of these admin guys to perform. So, and look, got a couple of them racing tonight. So look, huge hats off to the AMS Oz admin crew. So tonight, the guys that are racing, Will Devonish, Brenton Foley, Lewis Wedding are all in there. Likewise, people like Phil Boak, Mike Coulston and Brock Harvey are also in there as well, doing quite a lot of work behind the scenes. So hopefully this is the restart that we need to get underway. Now, the revised order, as we just picked up, Brenton Foley has the pole from Xeris. Steve Bolger has set the quickest qualifying time, but he is down toward the back of the grid. So
he's down in 25th, so he's second from the back. Also, Brock Harvey qualified.
He was a lot further up the order too. Yeah, he was.
And he's down in 23rd. So
I'm wondering whether there's been some penalties.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking as well. Potentially penalties were dished out at some point.
Yeah, we might have to look into that a little bit just to see. Yeah, and Brock Harvey saying the same thing there. Short Shift Motorsport in the podcast, qualified 11th, starting 24th. So something is not quite right with that grid, but hopefully we'll get to the bottom of that. Now,
all right.
Brenton Foley's just making to the grid on time, so let's rock and roll with this grid again, Bagsy, from the top.
Grid 2, Electric Boogaloo, Brendan Foley in first, Xeris in second, Ozrob in third, Will Devonish in fourth, and Lewis Wedding in fifth. These are the five you'll expect your race winner to come from, but you never know what's going to happen. It's a 90-minute race, so the winner could be anywhere in this field. Why Mitch, number 6, Wayne in 7th, Liam Spencer in 8th, Roadhog in 9th. Brendan Ross has not made the grid. He's still in his garage in 10th place, so it's a pit lane start for Brendan Ross. That'll put him a long way back. Luke Joyner in 11th. Gary Neville in 12th in the similar livery to Will Devonish there in that Lamborghini Huracan. BDS, it looks like there's been another issue for him, so I don't think he will be racing tonight. From the looks of it, his car has not managed to be on the grid, so some other error with AMS for him potentially that's causing him to crash out when the game starts. Steve Burko 14th, Zach Ross 15th, Mitch Hathaway is 16th, Aaron Thomas in 17th, followed by Termo who I believe is the only Aston Martin in the field.
Yes.
Correct.
So only one today, Aston Martin. Wayne Whitmore in the second Bentley. We've got BDS is there. He's in 20th. So I've got a BDS in 13th and 20th. So he is there. That's interesting. Noah Tara in 21st. Now he qualified a lot higher as well. So I'm not sure why he's having to start back in 21st. Once again, maybe penalties in the Nissan GTR. Thomas Cole has not made it out to the grid either. He's in his pit garage. Brock Harvey in 23rd, who we believe qualified 11th. John McDonald, number 24. Steve Bolger, who was the pole sitter but is now back in 25th position. So a 24-place grid penalty for Steve Bolger for unknown reasons. And he is starting on the back row now instead of the front row, which is very disappointing for him. And Brian Walsh is bringing up the rear in 26th in the third Wedding Crashers motorsport car.
Well, here we go. The field is rolling to the line. The green flag, we will hope, will go in the air very, very shortly. But, what's going on here? There's a bit of argy-bargy and crash and pash. Something's
okay.
yeah,
No
something's
one's
happened here.
moved. This is
Yep.
very odd.
And I think they were looking for the pace car to start the field. Now, I didn't see the pace car out there. So, wow, this is becoming a little bit of an unusual thing here. They were waiting on the green flag to be dropped, and I get the impression that maybe with whatever has happened has caused, or with them going back to restart the race, maybe that has caused a few little issues. We see a couple of disqualifications starting to come up.
Has the server potentially been set to a standing start instead of a rolling start, and that's why people have slowed down?
Well, we're just checking in on that right now, and no, it actually does say formation standing, so maybe there has been a little bit of trouble there. So, hence, that is what has occurred. So, Foley was being told with a grid box, and he's obviously yelled out to everybody that this is not quite right. So, a couple little dilemmas here. Gentlemen, what
So
we
this will
think?
probably necessitate a full server restart, and hopefully the grid will be fixed up from there as well. So those who qualified in those top positions will actually get to be there.
Yep.
Bit unfortunate, but these things can happen.
Yep, certainly will. And another delay, unfortunately, for tonight's proceedings. So, and yeah, that's now been confirmed by Roadies Racing in the live chat, that apparently it has presented a standing start for some weird reason. So, yet again, gentlemen, I think we might take this opportunity just to step away while the server restarts for a short little break. Hopefully, we can get this sorted, and we'll be back again in a few moments' time. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the second round of the Automobilista Australia World Series for GT3 for 2020. Geez, even I'm starting to get a bit confused. It's already wearing on. We normally would be racing by now. There has been a lot of drama going on, let's just say the least, behind the scenes. Now, we do have the correct grid order, and the admins are in the process of setting that grid at the moment. We're not 100% sure why the server has designed to, or set itself up to do some of the things it has been. It's normally pretty much a click and go, but it's been a bit temperamental for us. So we thank you for your patience in staying with us while we get some of these going, and we certainly hope that we'll be racing for 90 minutes pretty soon. But just to run you through what the order will be when they get everything put back into order. It will indeed be Steve Bolger off the front of the grid, so there is no penalties. There was just something strange going on behind the scenes. So it'll be Bolger and Foley off the front row, from Ziris and Osrob, Will Devenish, Lewis Wedding, Lime Mitch, Noah Turra, and then the Spencers, Wayne and Liam respectively. That'll be your top 10. And then we get to Roadhog and Brendan Ross, Luke Joyner, Gary Neville, Brock Harvey and Billy Dougal Salonga, or BDS as you'll see him on screen, Steve Burko, Zach Ross, Mitch Hathaway, and then Aaron Thomas will round out the 20. Then Termo all the way back in 21st place, which is a bit of a surprise. Wayne Whitmore will be alongside him, as Dwayne Davies is not taking part in the race, from what we understand. And then there were 4 drivers that did not set a time. John McDonald, Brian Walsh, Matt Schwass, who is the leader in Silver Cup at the moment, believe it or not, didn't set a time, and newcomer Thomas Cole, which will give us a total of 26 drivers. And as it looks like right now, we've got 25 currently in the service. So at this stage, we're just missing one person. Still a big field though, gents.
Yeah, that's an understatement, isn't it? Still, 26 cars is rivaling a blank paint, well, not a blank paint, a SRO World Series event in some parts of the world at the moment. And with the amount of colour on the grid as well, it's definitely looking the part. Hopefully we get the racing to match.
I hope so. Let's start making some predictions, Bagsy. I think you called it probably pretty well when we did that second run through of the grid before it all got canned, that the winner is probably likely to come from the top 5 spots. Now with Steve Bolger being promoted back to pole, probably likely to be coming from the top 6.
Indeed, they're the ones who are our creme de la creme, the top drivers here, but you can never count out anyone in this sort of series, really, because you never know who's going to be hit by technical issues, who's going to make a mistake, who's going to bugger up a pit stop or something and have a disadvantageous safety car. So really, you're going to want to count most of the top 15 to 20 as people who could potentially win in extreme circumstances.
You are 100% spot on. We have seen a number of drivers over the course of time come a crop up by virtue of technical gremlins somewhere along the line, and it wouldn't be surprising to see that happen again at some point. I actually expect this to be a little bit of an attritional race, to be honest with you. 18 turns, it is not an easy circuit. It's shorter than the last round we were at with Silverstone, but it doesn't go as fast. All right, Bagsy, you got your third stab at the grid here, and now I can see a pace car. So it looks like this, fingers crossed, should be the last run through.
All right, third time's the charm. Steve Bolger is in first place, restored to his rightful pole position after that brilliant lap. Brendan Foley second, Ziris third, Osrob fourth, Will Devenish fifth for Wedding Crashers Motorsport. If you're following the news at the same time now, which you're probably not, but they've restricted weddings to 5 people now. Luckily, we've got 4 people for Wedding Crashers Motorsport and 1 Lewis Wedding here in 6th, so we're all good here. We've got 5 people. We're fine. Lime Mitch is 7th, Noah Turra 8th, Wayne in 9th, Liam Spencer in 10th. I like Liam Spencer because he's got a GTR. GTR is the best car in this field. Roadhog is in 11th, Brendan Ross in 12th. I'll pay for that later, I know. Luke Joyner is 13th, Gary Neville 14th, Brock Harvey is 15th, BDS is 16th, Steve Burko is 17th, Rolling Rods Redemption, the only Lexus. Zach Ross is in 18th. Mitch Hathaway in 19th, a pair of Mercedes there. Aaron Thomas in 20th. Termo is in 21st. Wayne Whitmore 22nd. Brian Walsh 23rd. John McDonald in 24th. Matt Schwass in 25th. And it looks like a couple of people didn't actually show up on the... Oh no, that has. Sorry, Brian Walsh did 23rd. John McDonald and Matt Schwass, our Silver Cup leader, bringing up the rear. Yeah, so we've got the gravel shed racing cars at the front of the field and at the back of the field.
You're certainly right there, Bagsy. The last couple of drivers that you mentioned, John McDonald, Brian Walsh, Matt Schwass, did not set a time. And looks like one or two drivers didn't get back into the server in time. But 25 is still a record field. Now, this is a bit strange. Now, everybody's just having to check up really, really quickly, as you can see on the screen there, because the pace car was in the process of, I think, getting ready to bunch the field prior to this restart as they're coming into Sector 3, which is a bit of a strange one. They just came through the section of the circuit, as we like to affectionately call it, the flip-flop, which is turns 10 and 11.
No, this was a problem that we had in TCAC as well. For some reason, the safety car actually basically comes to a complete stop in that corner. So it's something that the drivers will have to watch out for moving forward the rest of this race.
Yeah, the safety car sometimes decides that standing on the brakes and brake checking the field is a good idea in several tracks in AMS. It just can't quite handle some of the corners, apparently.
Well, whatever the case, the safety car is now off the circuit and in the pit lane. The countdown timer has started. Finally, it's 20 to 10 Eastern here in Australia. We've got 90 minutes on the clock for this race. Let's get this show on the road finally. On the front row, Bolger and Foley, and here they go. Pretty clean start. Bolger gets a nice jump, and his teammate Ozrob is already looking to make a place or two on Brenton Foley as they go through the opening sequence of corners. Steve Bolger looks like he's gotten the job done, but in behind there, Xeris has actually lost out. So Ozrob's maintained third. Devish has come forward one spot. Xeris has gone back. They're all running off the exit at turn 2 there on the high speed second corner of this circuit. We will be seeing a lot of dust kicked up there over the course of the coming 90 minutes. Looks like Lewis Wedding was under a bit of pressure from Liam Mitch a bit further back as well. But so far, apart from Matt Schwass, who's just dropped off the tail of the field a little bit here, all going according to plan.
It looks like we got a yellow flag in that corner at the moment. Roadhog's just come off the track on the inside, so he's down in 24th position now. But at the head of the field is Steve Bolger. He's already gained a second and a half over Brenton Foley, who must have had a bit of a mistake. He actually runs a little wide in that flip-flop there. But it's Foley, then Ozrob, then Will Devonish, a gaggle of Lamborghinis at the top of this field for a pair of AMGs. And yeah, everyone seems to get through fairly cleanly so far.
Field's starting to get strung out a little bit here too, Bagsy. Everybody just probably needs to settle into a little bit of a rhythm, find their feet. There's been a little bit of time since these guys have been out there actually on the track in anger, probably close to about 20-30 minutes if my math is correct in my mind. So they all just need to just take a little bit of time to get up to speed here and then put their head down.
Brendan Foley is sending the rear of his car just absolutely all over the place at the moment, but after one lap, Steve Bolger has a 2-second advantage. So in 2 minutes, Steve Bolger has gained 2 seconds. If that pace keeps up, he's going to lap almost the whole field. I doubt it, but still a very impressive start from Steve Bolger. And Brendan Foley is under pressure from Bolger's teammate Ozrob. He's in a gravel shed sandwich at the moment, which is a terrible sounding sandwich. Yeah,
we're watching that battle right now between Foley and Ozrob, and a bit further behind too. This is another battle that's really going to shape up nicely. Lewis Wedding and Xeris, both with the Mercedes AMG power under the hoods, and these two are no strangers to having a few battles together. They've had a couple of really, really good ripping drives in ARW competition over, I think, last year. We saw them on the odd occasion, and fully expect that they will get it on quite handsomely this race.
Go
I'm just going to interrupt both of you. We got a car off at turn 3. It is Brock Harvey who's been sent into the gravel trap at turn 3. He actually was in a battle with Mitch Hathaway, a little bit of contact there, and he's actually made the wall. So he's now in 24th, and a long recovery road for him.
Yep, just looking at that on the replay there, we just caught the back end of that. So yeah, you're right, he did have a fairly lengthy off there and having to recover to the track. And in actual fact, we've actually lost our first runner of the night as well, Gary Neville, in one of the Wedding Crashers Motorsport Lamborghinis, is off the road and done after just one lap. So again, not sure if that's a technical drama, but it wouldn't be surprised to see if it is this early in the race.
Just an interesting note on that top end of the field now. Foley has actually backed up the rest of the group quite a fair bit. Osrob, who was looking to pass Foley on that first lap, is now under the clutches of Will Devonish as well, and Xeris has actually dropped Lewis Wedding. So Foley, we've got a bit of a Foley train forming here with a pair of Lamborghinis and the Mercedes AMG just behind. This battle looks like it's going to rage on well into the race, and then we've got a little bit of a gap between that group and then Line Mitch until the rest of the field.
Yeah, it was what I was saying. As Xeris tries to go around the outside of Will Devonish.
Oh, he's giving him a tap too. He's giving him a serve.
He's giving him a touch. He's round. So Xeris has Wedding right there. So Xeris slowed down to let Will Devonish retain the position. But that has brought Lewis Wedding right back into that, as Wedding gives a bit of a nudge into the back of Xeris as well, saying, "Hello, I'm back. Welcome to the battle," which is now a three-way battle. I was going to say earlier that Xeris is the best driver by far at ARW, and Wedding arguably the best Automobilista Australia driver. So seeing these two duke it out should be an absolute treat, and Will Devonish gets to spectate with them right behind him.
I was going to say, Bagsy, Xeris did an awfully good job then of defensive driving, and on top of that to let Will Devonish have the position without actually overtaking him. So he gave him the serve, was able to back off to let him retain fourth place, but then he did an awesome job to keep Wedding at bay. Yeah, he's gone for it again, but he did an awesome job to keep Wedding at bay as well in perfectly legal defence, so he didn't lose fifth place.
Xeris has so much mid-corner speed compared to Will Devonish. Will Devonish just isn't quite taking these corners as fast, but then can accelerate off a bit better on the straights, it seems.
He's dancing around back there.
Absolutely put this car, set it up so that it can power through the corners.
Well, let's see if he can power out of this final corner here. Bolger and the fastest lap immediately surpassed by Brenton Foley. This is off the lap 3. There's just not the distance in a straight line. Xeris is going to have to try and get it done under brake somewhere, I think. He's just going to have to make a bit fainter move somewhere here and try and set Will up. But Will's driving quite nicely at the moment, just putting his car in all the right places. Xeris is just ducking out every now and again, having a bit of a look, trying to get a bit of distraction going on. Maybe here's the opportunity here. There he goes, down the inside at turn 3. That's the move that he tried, I think, to get done last time, but he was looking at it down here at turn 4. And now he makes the move stick. So very, very nice pass by Xeris.
And I wonder how quickly Xeris is going to attach to the tail of Osrob further up the road. Very nicely done from Xeris there. Set it up very nicely out of the first complex of corners. And yeah, Will had no response. And now he's falling into the clutches of Lewis Wedding as they go through the slow turn 7 to end the first sector.
Let's keep an eye on Xeris' times now that he's managed to clear Will Devonish. So through the first sector, they were all in the 37s. Actual fact, Devonish's time through sector 1 was a 38.4. That was actually the slowest of the top 6 cars. In actual fact, slower than the top. So out of about the top 10 cars, it was about 7th or 8th in terms of pace through the first sector alone. So maybe playing a slightly different strategy here, maybe looking to conserve a bit of tyre, go for a little bit, maybe an extra lap of fuel or something. Everybody will have had plenty of time to figure this strategy out.
Foley's just had a very messy couple of corners. It's cost him a few tenths of a second there on Steve Bolger. He had closed in a bit, and he's now got Osrob closed in on him a little bit even more as Bolger takes back that fastest lap. So trading fastest laps at the moment. Xeris has gapped Will Devonish a fair bit, and Wedding is not able to hold on to Devonish as well in these faster parts of the track. He's absolutely gaining on him in the corners, so that Mercedes much better in the corners than the Lamborghini. That's something we've seen across all the GT3 seasons, but that Lamborghini is an absolute rocket in a straight line. It makes it very difficult to pass.
Yeah, you're right there, and on top of that, Bags, I just noticed too, there was 3 different purple sectors on that lap. Steve Bolger with purple sector 1, Brenton Foley with purple sector 2. He was actually penalised for a track cut in that lap as well, Brenton Foley in the third sector. But the man with the purple sector in sector 3 is Xeris, and he was actually the second quickest man on the circuit that lap. It was only 2/10 off Steve Bolger's time. He was actually a full second quicker than Ozrob ahead. You can see him in the background, just starting to loom into Ozrob's rear mirrors here. So you're right, it's a matter of how quickly he can hone in on the back of this 555 Lamborghini and be on the podium positions and set his race up from here.
Just having a bit of a look down the field. In 16th place, Termo and Aaron Thomas are having quite the battle over that position there, and Jack Ross is not far ahead of them. The battle for 7th is roaring along quite as well. Lime Mitch has Noah Tara right behind him, and Wayne is watching them with great interest also. 10th, 11th, 12th is currently close, and 22nd, 23rd. So we've got battles all down the field.
Michael, what have you got out there?
On that note of 10th, 11th, 12th, Spencer's just gone wide. Liam Spencer's just gone wide in the second of the Nissans, and that's really closed up Brendan Ross and Mitch Hathaway onto his tail, luckily to hold that position there. In fact, on the note of Noah Tara and Lime Mitch, Tara actually made the move on Wayne down the main straight the previous lap, and then Lime Mitch made a mistake, which has invited Noah Tara to have a look at the back of that lime green BMW as they file through into the first corner, nose to tail. So a lot going on up and down the field at the moment. And while that's all happening, we've actually missed Xeris passing Ozrob for third place.
Yeah,
That's just happened. So that might have been a mistake from Ozrob, because he was behind him not too long ago.
Let's see if we can pick that up on the replay here and see if we can find precisely what happened. And no, our replay is already cutting to the fact that Xeris was ahead at the time that our thing has gone for. So you're right, it must have been a mistake for Ozrob somewhere on either the last lap or in the final sector. Yeah, final sector, you're right, timing screens.
Yeah, it was in the final sector. Ozrob went wide in the penultimate complex of corners, so just basically opened the door and Xeris just went through very, very welcomely.
Noah Tara has just taken the 7th place off of Lime Mitch with an excellent move down the inside in, I believe, turn 7.
Yep, here he comes now on the replay.
On a charge in that GTR.
We saw Noah Tara in the Porsche last season take a brilliant pole at Jerez as well. That's actually got his elbows out a little bit. It has to be said down at turn 7, which is Ferradura. So not afraid to mix it up with the big boys at the front. And
Lime Mitch just got a little bit wide there, and that was all the invitation Noah Tara needed.
Yeah, just left the door nicely open for him.
Definitely one of the drivers who has improved remarkably over the last year or so of racing here, and it's I'm sure Greg Tara will be quite proud to see him racing quite well, and dare I say potentially better than Greg Tara has in GT3 before.
Oh, be careful what you say there, Baggers. I think G-Tars is watching along in the live stream at the moment.
Just a bit further back down the field, Mitch Hathaway has done a sterling job, up 9 positions from his starting position. He's now in the top 10 in that AMG, so we'll keep eyes on Mitch Hathaway as this race goes on, because he's putting in a sterling effort so far.
He certainly is, and he's one of the drivers that has got a race victory or two under his belt in Automobilista Australia supercars as well. So, of course, the very famous victory on debut from the back of the grid to the front of the grid at Adelaide last year. And still up there in the top half a dozen spots, having switched from Holden power to Ford power in Supercars Championship this year, and had a few runs in GT3 machinery in that very car, in that very livery last year as well. So good to see him getting his GT3 boots on for another crack at it. Him and his fellow teammate in the Supercars Championship, BDS, both in the field tonight.
Having a look at Lewis Wedding at the moment, and he's not really putting too much pressure on Will Devonish. Will Devonish has caught right up to Ozrob though, and Xeris isn't really dropping them, but you wonder if Wedding is struggling with this track, or you could be Wedding not being as aggressive as he could be and just biding his time. It's very hard to tell with Wedding sometimes, as Will Devonish really gets the tail out in front of him, but it's hard to tell with Lewis Wedding because he is very good at conserving and making the long race plan work over the here and now. But he did only qualify 6th, and he hasn't gone any further from there, so you wonder if this track just isn't one he has the pace with.
I'm just going to look at Lewis Wedding's times here while you guys are pondering that very question, because when I look at Wedding and the times that he's been punching out over the last 3 laps, they've all been within 2/10 of each other. So a pair of 46.5s and a 46.3, and before that there was a 47.2 and a 48.2 as well. In actual fact, there was a track violation on the second lap as well. So I think maybe, from my point of view, he's just going into a mode where he's just trying to play the strategy card here and get himself back into contention.
Yeah, one of the things Lewis Wedding is very good at is being able to play the strategy. So because he's one of the best thinking drivers in the field, you can never really count him out, even when he is a little off the pace. Just while you were talking, I was having a bit of a laugh at Wayne and Lion Mitch. They were blocking each other into turn 1, and Lion Mitch actually had the headlights going at Wayne in response. So a bit of fun going on down the field. That's probably the closest battle on track now for 8th and 9th position. Maybe in conjunction with Liam Spencer and Brendan Ross a bit further back. But yeah, very willing in the mid-pack at the moment. Just back on Lewis Wedding, yeah, he has got the ability to outthink the people he's racing against, and so that always makes him dangerous. And we saw that happen at Silverstone. So I don't think we can count him out just yet, but he's not looking super frightening, unlike the two at the head of the field at the moment.
No, spot on there. Having a look at the times as well, it's not really coming down at the front. In actual fact, Steve Bolger is very, very slowly edging away. And his actual fact, he's just set a new fastest lap there as well. 1 minute 45.226. And that's a full 3/10 faster than Foley. Xeris, believe it or not, had a track violation on that lap.
Devonish just spun at turn 1.
Yep, he's off. And that is down at turn 1. That's buried up. So you should be able to get out of the kitty litter with that. Now, he was tucked in behind Ozrob here as well. Did he just miss a braking marker on the run down to the front straight?
Nah, he's spun it. He looks like he overcooked the wheels coming out of turn 1, heading towards turn 2.
He just caught the grass. You can see it on his tyres.
Yeah, the back end came around. Thankfully, it looks like he's gotten away with minimal damage as well. Looks like he might have just nudged the wall there, but down to 7th, and now he's in the thick of this real battle here. So he's come out behind Noah Turra, and then he's got Wayne Spencer and Lime Mitch behind him. So this is a really dangerous battle to be in for Will Devonish right now.
And immediately behind them is Mitch Hathaway as well, who's been storming up the field. So he could be in for the fight of his life here, as we're just over 15 minutes into this race. Wow, where did that time go?
Yeah, well, you can see the amount of garbage on Will Devonish's tyres right now as well. They're going to take probably the better part of a half a lap to clean up before you'll actually get ultimate grip realised from going off the track there. So very, very close proximity race there. You can see he kicks up. Everyone's kicking up a little bit of dust as they go through the flip-flop here. So turns 10 and 11. And then uphill to turn 12. And down into your favourite section of the circuit that they like to call it, you like to call it, Michael, the boomerang corner coming up, which will be this next kink to the right. There it is, right there.
And Devonish is looking to set up Turra here, and Turra goes a little wide, and yeah, Devonish is straight through. You could see the difference in the entry line to Boomerang as now Will's on the defensive around the last corner. He's going to have that big monster GT behind him down the main straight, but he's got a much better run. The Nissan...
Spencer's trying to buy into this too. Wayne Spencer's trying to buy into this too with Noah Turra right now. Turra made another mistake off the final corner, gave the Ferrari a sniff. It looks like he's going to hold for the minute, but he goes narrow on the line, so that's a good defensive line there from Noah Turra. Just got to be able to hold it round this long, sweeping turn 2. Goes wide again. So many people going wide at that exit of turn 2, being sucked into it. Now Spencer has another look, and now he commits to the move. Same thing that Xeris did. Block pass? No. Caught a little bit of Turra's front right fender. That's going to incentivise Lime Mitch behind. Great helicopter shots here from our helicopter pilot. But now Wayne Spencer's moved up to P7. Opportunistic move, but that's what you got to do sometimes.
Yeah, and that all started because Turra got set up by Will Devonish into that final complex of corners. So now he's lost further to... And that's also released Will from this battle as well. Yeah, great work from Will Devonish, and maybe a bit of naivety or inexperience from Turra there, just getting out of the groove and then losing another position in that battle.
If you're wondering what's happening towards the front, in our podium places, and the gap between, say, Brendan Foley and Xeris, last lap Brendan Foley did a 145.834, and Zero's today 145.835. So 1,000th of a second between the two there. So if you've been focusing on that gap from lap to lap, the square root of F all has been happening.
And on top of that, there's multiple drivers setting purple sectors again. Foley, purple sector 1. Steve Bolger, purple sector 2. Nobody else is purple sector 3. But at the front of the field, you're right. Actually, Zero's had a pretty poor lap that last lap as well, 46.9. Meanwhile,
drop both of you here. Wayne's gone wide at the final corner, giving Tara that position, and Liam Mitch has also gone wide, and Hathaway's on his tail as well. We're watching Tara and Wayne into the first corner. Tara easily takes that position back, and now just behind them, Liam Mitch and has got Mitch Hathaway entirely.
Hathaway's the one to watch here. I think he'll be making a move into turn 4.
Well, they both ran a little bit wide at turn 2. Behind them as well, you've got his younger man Liam Spencer fending off Brendan Ross as well. So, and ranging up to the back of them as well as Luke Joyner, who's no slouch in any form of machinery as well. So there's plenty of these nice, exciting little battles starting to unfold here, gentlemen. We've got 20 minutes, nearly 20 minutes has elapsed, and plenty of action up and down the field already.
This is what GT3 racing is all about, as Wayne has a little on the inside of Noah Tara, but backs out of it. All these different machinery, all with strengths and weaknesses in different spots, all filing in and out of line with each other. This is great stuff to watch. It's making me happy.
I think it's making a lot of us happy, not only the fact that the GT3 machinery is out, but that we finally went racing as well. We've unfortunately had another retirement on the last lap too. Wayne Whitmore is unfortunately out of this one, unsighted to our cameras. And as we look into things, that's just a straight DNF. So it looks like it is a some sort of technical gremlin there. Oh, someone's around. Who was that was around? That is it's one of the Lamborghinis. Is that Brian Walsh? Okay, I was a bit worried if he's still off the track. So he's actually gone a lap down there.
I believe that might be the second lap he's gone down potentially.
Yeah, him and John McDonald are down a lap. Sorry, go on, Michael.
We've got Mitch Hathaway, who's actually made the move on Liam Mitch. Liam Mitch went wide in avoidance of Brian Walsh, and now they're side by side down the main straight in response.
John McDonald out of the pits too. Be careful here, gentlemen, because sorry to cut you off there. John McDonald actually just came out of the pit lane, right smack into this battle. He's done an awfully good job to get out of the way of these two warring men, and they're going to all side by side through the first part of 2. Liam Mitch is not going to give this up. This is reminiscent of what he does in Super 2. And he's going to try and fight it around the outside at 3 and position himself for 4. Door handle to door handle stuff.
Wow.
Nicely done.
And he did, importantly there, he maintained the apex so that way Hathaway couldn't come underneath him like he did in turn 2. So very, very great, very good racecraft there from Liam Mitch to keep Mitch Hathaway behind him.
That is a sensational bit of driving from both men in that occasion. They did not want to give an inch, but there was a little bit of a bump. And
I've got the feeling that while this is good defensive driving from Liam Mitch, his pace isn't quite that of Mitch Hathaway this race. Mitch Hathaway's best lap is 5 tenths faster than Liam Mitch's, but he's been consistently half a second to a second faster per lap. So it might be that for Liam Mitch, while this battle is good and we're enjoying it, for his overall race, it might be better to let him through and use him to make his way through the people ahead.
That's the problem with these endurance races. Sometimes the red mist of what's happening right now can cloud what's going to happen 5, 10, 20 laps down the track. So yeah, it would be maybe a smarter move, but of course no one wants to freely give up a position, do they?
no, certainly they don't. There's another person who's starting to slowly pick their way through the field, much to the same way that Mitch Hathaway's picked his way through the field. Termo started to move his way through the field as well. He's up to 14th place, having started 21st.
Noah Tara's been the first of the main front runners to blink. We did have John McDonald pit earlier, but Noah Tara is the first of the leaders to have a pit.
Okay, that's an interesting strategy call, actually, to go that early. I thought that a lot of drivers would be able to get a lot further than that. We'll have to watch that with interest. He's going to probably maybe trying to come out in some clear air, but I mean, he was sort of just paired off, I think, there with Wayne Spencer for a little bit. So maybe thinking, well, maybe just a time to get in and
Oh no, he's retired. He's
retired. No, what's happened to Noah Tara then?
Oh wow.
I'm not sure, but that's very disappointing because he was having a great race.
Well, it's a bit
We
of a
might need
shame.
to get our roadside assistance on that one.
Yep, I think you're probably right. So there, unfortunately, is the stricken number 22 Nismo of Noatara. Gents, he was doing really, really well in that race. I was really looking forward to seeing what he could do at the back end of the race.
Yeah, he was, again, maybe not the best racecraft because he's still a little inexperienced, but he was really working that GTR and was putting in some good laps. That's a real shame.
Greg Taro believing that may actually possibly be an internet disconnect talking along the live chat, and that's unfortunately a symptom of what the Taros have had for some time out there, up in the Adelaide Hills, I believe. The internet reliability tends to be a little bit troublesome sometimes, but also given the times that we're in as well, there's a lot more people using the internet for things that normally wouldn't be using it for, like working from home and the like.
I'm just going to interrupt that train of thought because this battle between Mitch Hathaway and Lime Mitch is on again. They are nose to tail down the main straight for 9th and 8th. And Hathaway dives to the inside and goes very deep under grates. Too deep under grates.
Oh, he's pulled it up.
How has he done that? That's
incredible.
Now the
Now he's
defensive
gonna be
driving.
on the inside. Yeah, now Lime Mitch has got the mocker on him. They're going to go... Is he going to go to the outside, the inside? Mitch Hathaway covers the inside. Lime Mitch goes around the outside. Can he hang it out there like he did last lap? Yes, he can. He takes that position back.
2 laps in a row. Lime Mitch is on fire getting back that position.
Second verse, same as the first. Let's go and have a look at that again because that seriously deserves a replay. Let's have a look at it from the bonnet cam. Here we go. Let's see him set this move up. So, feint to the outside, came back underneath, and then committed to the outside once Mitch Hathaway had committed to the defence. So, that's the smart way to do it, you can only move once to defend, gentlemen, and he sold him a dummy absolutely perfectly.
That's unbelievable to hold it around the outside there. And then again, shut the door on the apex, didn't let Mitch Hathaway come up the inside. That's just crazy good racing. But he is looking vulnerable in that last sector. He's got Mitch Hathaway all over the tail of him again. And Mitch is trying to get past in some really awkward positions. So the pace is definitely on Hathaway's side, as we've got Zero setting the fastest lap of the race in 3rd position now, 45 flat.
Yeah, purple the second and third sectors there, and had a very, very handy first sector as well. So that was really good for him because that's taken 8/10 of a second out of the advantage that Brenton Foley has ahead of him now.
Mitch Hathaway has pit now. Mitch Hathaway is in the pits, so that's his strategy. He's going to be the first one to pit now. Also, we're just hearing from chat that Michael is a bit quiet, so now that might be...
Yep.
You could bump his mic up a bit.
We have done that.
Mitch Hathaway is going to be the first of the fastest people to pit.
Yep, we have boosted Floodman's microphone in the last 5 minutes or so, just while we were looking at Noatara's car. We'd like to do it in opportunities where we have to do it, where the game doesn't stutter for us, so it looks like we've managed to get that done. That puts Steve Burko into the top 10, the sole Lexus that's in the field. We did see Phil Ogden run this car at the GT3 finale in Adelaide last year, albeit a different livery, and some familiar liveries that I'm seeing there on that car. The Builders Traffic Management Group, actually a company I believe based out of Victoria here. Rhodey will correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's one of the companies that Mick Fisher has sponsored on his Formula V in the Victorian State Circuit Racing Championships as well, and he has done a little bit of sponsorship at the Formula V presentation dinner last year, the Builders Traffic Management and Builders Crane Hire businesses. So good to see some local businesses picking up some sponsorship in the sim racing world.
Indeed it is. We've found a few more details out about the issues that Noatara had. It seems that they have a router problem where they need to bind chat keys to the shifter to keep a port open, but because he was stationary in the pits, that's most likely why it booted him, because he wasn't shifting through the gears, so it wasn't keeping that port open. So it's a very unfortunate and interesting router issue. So it seems that it's an old R-factor issue with some routers, and that's a very peculiar sort of internet issue to have.
Just seeing Luke Joyner come into the pits now, and I believe he may have just had a little off at the last corner because there was an awful lot of rubbish on his tyres as we come to the replay to see what happened. So this is now where we start to see all the strategy plays start to unfold. Yes, and there we go. Luke Joyner did have an off, and he did get the wall as well. So You have to be very careful that the damage repair will come into play here as well. And there is a hive of activity in the pit lane. So Burko in, Zach Ross is in. I believe that is also Lime Mitch that's in as well. Correct me if I'm wrong there, Bagsy. It looks like he's in as well.
Lime Mitch.
And so
Just as a note for the viewers, I usually keep track of all the drivers and when they pit, but because we've got so many, I'm reserving that for the top 10 or 12 that are in the race, because otherwise it's going to be way too many to keep track of.
That's true. That's true.
And that's a fair call, I think, as well there, Bagsy.
Now, this is going to be very interesting to see what happens between Lime Mitch and Mitch Hathaway. Now, Mitch Hathaway's obviously taken that stop to get out of the battle and put in a good lap, and he's done the undercut here. He's come out ahead of Lime Mitch by some way. It looks like about 7 or 8 seconds. In fact, Mitch is behind Liam Spencer, who also took an earlier pit stop, and Matt Schwartz, who has yet to take a stop. So he's lost a ton of ground onto Mitch Hathaway now. So that undercut has worked wonders for Mitch Hathaway, assuming he can get through to the end of this stint without losing too much time.
No, that's really worked a treat, as you said, for Mitch Hathaway. He's gotten out of that battle and got the stop done, and he's come out with, well, if you look at the times there, he's ahead of Lime Mitch by some nearly 8 seconds now. So to call it down to, you know, nice strategy. Maybe there was an extra little bit of work that had to take place in the stop for Lime Mitch, but whatever the case may be, it's broken that little battle pack apart. If we go back to the head of the field, let's see if we can pick up our race leader, because the race leader's got some traffic right now that he needs to deal with. Now, he hasn't stopped yet, but he's coming up
And guess
to...
who that traffic is?
Yeah, Lime Mitch, Liam Spencer and Matt Schwartz. So it's...
And we didn't have to go back too far to find our leader, did we?
No, we didn't have to go back very... Well, cameras, we had to cycle to see where our race leader was. But it looks like he might be realising that it's time to come in for a stop this lap, given the traffic that he's got ahead. He's only got a couple more corners to go. He's up at turn 13 out of 18 right now. About to come through the boomerang corner.
This could be the difference of several seconds if Bolger doesn't pit here and then Foley does. It's going to be one of those things where that's a lap of picking through traffic.
No, he's going again. He's going again. Now Foley's going. Yeah, both going around again. Now let's just see what the lap times are when they come across the line, because
Xeris does jump in, by the way.
Yep, so Xeris has gone in. Foley with a 46 flat, and Bolger with a 45.9. So still a tenth of a second gain for Steve Bolger, although he probably did slow up a little bit just to make sure he didn't run into any of the traffic. Maybe just managing the pace here.
The guys who have pit just ahead of him, his teammate. Firstly, his teammate in Matt Schwartz, who
just let him through.
Yep. And then the two guys ahead who are now battling for position are going to be on fresh tyres, so they might even be quicker than Bolger or have more grip than Bolger does at the minute. They would be wise to maybe jump out of the way and resume their own battle, but really, they're in the pit. Like, Bolger's in the pit window now. He should have come in that last lap. Any traffic at all is going to affect your outright pace, and especially seeing as Brenton Foley and Xeris, who's come in, haven't got that traffic as much yet. You can just see Foley in the background of shot there with the headlights on. The delay that Bolger's going to get is going to be much more in relative terms than the ones around him. Yep. So let's see if he comes in this time by. It doesn't look like he's losing too much time, but that's a yet on that one.
I think he is, as of now, I would say he's losing time. That gap that was 3.2 seconds
to
2.8. 2.4 seconds. So it's absolutely dropping like a stone here.
Yeah, he's in trouble here. He's going to have to come in for a stop, or he's going to have to clear this traffic. He's got the pace on the worn tyres to clear them. Liam Spencer just got really in the middle of that one, but he's gotten out of the way. Just sort of checked up at the wrong point in time there, did Spencer. Bolger's going around again. Foley is going around again as well. Xeris has come back out in 7th place, and I did look to see whether or not he'd taken tyres, and he indeed did. Now Bolger clears Lime Mitch.
Ozrob has avoided the pit lane, and as has Lewis Wedding. So Xeris is still the only one to pit, and Xeris came out with a good 20 or 30 seconds of air in front of him. So Xeris can just absolutely hammer out laps at the moment, while Bolger is picking his way through traffic, and Foley is about to come up on that traffic. Ozrob, I can understand him staying out because he has very little in the way of traffic ahead of him. I believe he might have Luke Joyner. Luke Joyner is just ahead of him, but that's one person by themselves, not a whole group of people.
That's right. Here's the man that we were just talking about, Xeris on screen, the ZNB Racing number 74. Normally runs number 64 in ARW, but 64 is a car number that is already taken in the series, so has gone up to 74. Unfortunately, that's the case for a number of drivers that are used to running different numbers in different series that they partake in.
Coincidentally, Xeris is in 7th and is down 4 positions from his starting position, also 7-4.
I'm sure he'll watch this back bags. He'll be wanting to give you a little bit of a slap after that one.
These are the sort of these are the sort of hot takes that I'm here for.
Yes, I know. You take the punishment. We don't. His outlap was a 2:39.6. So comparing that to some of the other drivers that have done some, like Matt Schwass was in the same time as Xeris, did a 2:43.4. So
just looking at Line Mitch, he's actually really holding on to the back of Steve Bolger here. So those old tyres seem to be getting to Steve Bolger a little bit, because Line Mitch is there, it goes into the pits.
All right.
Followed immediately by Foley.
Well, that's not a surprise. Foley mirroring what the race leader does, trying to stay on the same strategy. The real question is going to be what happens behind. So third place Osrob goes through. Is Wedding going to take the bait and come in? No. Keeps going.
And that's good. That's good. The way that you make passes in endurance racing, GT3 racing, is by doing it not on track. I mean, it's great if you're viewing to watch these awesome battles on track, but being smart, being like Mitch Hathaway and doing the undercut, being like Xeris and getting off strategy, that's how you get positions in this type of racing. So I really don't like Bolger and Foley sticking on the same strategy as each other. It's just not thinking. It shows that they're not thinking the same way, say, a Lewis Wedding is.
I think Xeris has a decent chance of getting ahead of Foley and potentially Bolger as well. He's on a very, very fast lap. He sent 2 purple sectors as both Bolger and Foley get going, so he's probably not going to get past them quite, but it's going to be very, very close.
We're watching them with interest.
Coming up the final corner now.
Yep, so Xeris is coming down the main straight now, and then Foley and Bolger have just come out, and Xeris going to get it done. He sets the fastest lap of the race, so that's what you needed to be doing, but he's gotten an awful lot closer to the back of that Viper now as well, and in actual fact, Wayne Whitmore is in for a stop, and I think Will Devonish came in as well.
Yeah, Devonish is pit as well.
So purple every sector for last lap around for Xeris. He's cut 2.5 seconds out of that gap prior to the pit stops, and that was just from pitting a lap or 2 earlier, getting onto those better tires earlier, and making use of the clear track while the other cars had traffic. That's smart strategy. That's exactly what you want. And now with Matt Schwass just ahead of Brenton Foley here, lapped car runner, this is going to play into Xeris' hands even more.
You're certainly right. That'll now incentivise Xeris as we've got a drive-through penalty for the number 98 car, Billy Dougal-Salonga. Now, BDS is down in 19th place, and as we cycle through the field, it looks like he's been given a track violation.
Osrob and Wedding are both in.
All right, finally, we get some action on those two, and it looks like who's in there with them as well. Is that that's the
Brock Harvey?
The Brock Harvey car just ahead as well. And in comes Billy Dougal. Yep, that's a lap down. And Billy Dougal-Salonga is now serving his drive-through penalty. Now, Wedding is angled slightly compared to Osrob, who's in a traditional pit lane position here. Wondering whether or not Wedding going to take maybe a slightly less fill here, or whether he's going to do something a little bit contrary to what the others are doing and maybe try and jump Osrob in the pits.
They're going to, regardless, end up a fair way behind Xeris. And they're going to end up behind, or they'll come out slightly ahead of Aaron Thomas, and Will Devonish is probably going to be a fair way behind them.
Yeah, so Xeris has just gone through. Wedding takes off.
Wedding has filled a little bit more fuel there.
Yeah, I think
that would be a typical Wedding strat.
It would be. And these two gentlemen have just exited the pits here with Wedding and Osrob. As we see him back a shot, looks like Termo and Aaron Thomas coming in. As well, Wedding's gone deep. Wedding's gone very deep. Just completely missed the braking marker. Completely cut the second corner. Well, that'll be a track cut for sure, because he did take that at a fair old decent clip. So that's not what you want to be doing coming out of the pits. That's a rare Lewis Wedding mistake, gentlemen. We don't see that very often.
No, we don't. What an odd mistake to make. I mean, you can understand it coming straight out of the pits. That's just a lapse of concentration there for Lewis Wedding.
Big lapse of concentration. Meanwhile, up a bit further ahead, Brenton Foley has purpled the first sector in his pursuit of the race lead. So he's done a 36.831 to the first sector. Now sector 2 comes up just on the approach to turn 12. So as they go through the flip-flop, and they've gone through sector 2 now, in actual fact, Bolger purpled the middle sector by, so he was 2/10 quicker. So Foley was 3/10 quicker in sector 1. Bolger was 2/10 quicker in sector 2 and with a purple sector time. So it's advantage Foley by 1/10 of a second as they get to the last couple of corners. And
looks like Foley's had a much
times.
better final sector though. The times dropped down again.
Yep, and we'll get a read on it here. Brenton Foley, fastest lap of the race, 44.3.
And if you're wondering at home, sorry to jump in over the top of you now there, if you're wondering at home why the lap times in the race are so far out compared to what we were seeing in qualifying, with all the malarkey with the server having to be reset, it's actually completely cleaned the track. So we basically started that first half of the race with a green track. So as the rubber's gone down, we're starting to see that lap speed come back into the track, which is why we're starting to see purple lap times again and again. Looks like we've also just lost Aaron Thomas. Aaron Thomas? Yeah,
yes,
Aaron
correct.
Thomas as well.
Yeah.
So that's the fourth runner that we've lost in this race out of 20th position. So the first of the MHRT cars that's out of this race. This is shaping up rather nicely as we get to the halfway point here, gents. So Steve Bolger has led the majority of this race, aside from the pit stops. Brenton Foley's now just starting to get into a little bit of a rhythm where he's starting to take a 10th or 2 here or there out of Bolger and just starting to match him for pace. But a yellow flag here in this section as they come into it right now just to see what is in the way. Oh, and that's Brock Harvey, the very near dangerous rejoin at the flip-flop. But with Foley starting to was just starting to close down Steve Bolger for a minute there. He's lost a bit more time now, probably by virtue of the yellow flag coming out. And then Ziris starting to play himself into contention here too. This is going to start to set up the back end of this race rather nicely after the second stops.
Yeah, just on Brock Harvey there, he just got a bit of curb on the inside, which sent him swinging across the track. And we've lost, I think there's another spin at the tail of the field.
Yeah, looks like Brian Walsh again, I think.
Okay.
Yep. Actually, no. Actually, yes, it was Brian Walsh that they just passed on the run there. There's your 3 leaders as they stand, first, second, and third, just going into turn 1. So
I think at this point, in the absence of something catastrophic, the winner of this race is going to come from either Bolger, Foley, or Ziris, because after that, you've got Osrob's now 16 seconds off of third place, and Lewis Wedding is another 4 seconds back down the road from there. So it just looks like Wedding doesn't have the pace today. Unless there's a safety car and he can stage a late fight back due to that, I don't see him or Osrob making up that time.
The safety car is going to throw a real challenge at these drivers depending on if and when it comes out. We saw at the last round, Silverstone, it came out very, very early, and the only person who really took the bait when it was on offer to take a pit stop was Lewis Wedding, which means he went onto a strategy contrary to everybody else and left them all scratching their heads as to what on earth he'd actually done. So he actually ran to the same sort of lap time and the same sort of laps that everybody else did when it came to serving a stop, but his stop around the same time as everybody else was a lot shorter, and that's what won him that race. It'll be a little bit different in this case because the lap is so long. You need to, especially under safety car, you're going to need to work out precisely what it is here. And there it is! Bang! Just as we're talking about it, safety car, out it comes.
There was a big crash between Zach Ross, I say big crash, there was a crash between Zach Ross and Steve Burko down at turn 1 about 20 seconds ago. And that's what's triggered this safety car because it ended up with.
Well, here we go. We've got it on the thing. So Zach Ross was looking to make the pass, and Burko wasn't having any of it. Tried to go right around the outside, and Luke Joyner, I think, was very lucky to avoid the contact there as well. Now
Two into one doesn't go.
2 into 1 does not go, gentlemen. What did we say? This is. We were just literally just talking about it. We call this the commentator's curse. Normally we put it on drivers, but today we put it on the safety car.
Yeah.
So,
go ahead, Bagsy.
So I believe that means the pit lane is now closed, so you
Correct.
can't pit to gain an advantage here, and that happened just before the leaders got to the final corner, which means that Steve Bolger has just now picked up the safety car. So that massive lead he had over Redding and Osrob has been wiped out, and that's brought them right back into this.
And this is a really awkward time in the race as well. It's right smack bang in the middle of the second stint. You really can't pit here and get to the end. It's just too long. It's 47 minutes. But you can't, even if you do pit here, you can't really gain an advantage either, unless you're, say, someone on the tail end of the lead lap, maybe looking to try and shorten up that last pit stop. You're really stuck in no man's land if you take that pit stop here. So it's a really awkward time in the race to have this safety car. Maybe you might see someone who has a bit more pace or a bit more tenacity passing people jump into the pits and try and make the best of some fresh tires. But really, it would be a brave man to do that. And I think maybe only 1 or 2 people might take that opportunity.
There's that little safety car check up again down here at, I think it's turn number 10 and 11, where that safety car just takes a bit of a dip in the rotor, just hits the anchors, and everybody having to get out of the way. So they've done that pretty well that time around, a little bit better than what it was on the formation lap.
We're at 46 minutes to go, but this race is 90 minutes plus 1 lap. So you can really add another 2 and potentially 4 minutes to that, and you'd struggle to make it home.
Yeah.
I'd say it's almost impossible, but it does depend on how long this safety car goes on for. You could potentially make a stop here and join up to the back of the field, and if you were very, very good, make it all the way in, but it's not guaranteed to gain you positions.
I think it's going to be a case of track position being king here. Although,
Yeah.
oh, here we are. Oh, look at that. Bolger faked them all out, but then a couple behind decided they wanted to pull the
Wedding's
trigger.
gone in, Devonish has gone in.
So too has Foley, Xeris, Wedding has gone in. So too has Will
Brendan
Devonish.
Ross.
Brendan Ross has come in as well. So that's some of the heavy hitters coming in here. And
Awesome.
oh, I like. Oh, look at this! They all try to get in side by side, and Devonish can't get into the pit bay. I think there must be something with the pit groups here. Devonish is trying to get in, and he's blocked off Lewis Wedding. This is
There we go,
fantastic. He's finally in the pit lane. Wedding just decides to give him a shove on the way out. Roadhog's taking the bait as well.
That probably
So
wouldn't
Wedding
fly
didn't
in a pit
Tyres
paddock.
there.
All right, I'll let you decipher that one out, Bagsy. Did Wedding take tyres or did he not take tyres? I don't think
He did not
I don't
take
think he did.
tyres.
Is anybody else not taking tyres? Roadhog's coming
Foley
in.
took tyres,
Roadhog's
so
taking him.
Foley's come out
I think-
behind Wedding now.
I think Xeris is the big loser out of this because I think he's done a full service.
See, now, I don't understand why you would pit now and not take tyres, because the fuel advantage isn't going to be that helpful. As I said, you can't get to the end. So I don't know why you wouldn't put fresh tyres on and just join up to the back of the train. One of the real winners out of this, though, is Mitch Hathaway. He was came out of the pit sequence in 7th, now in 3rd place after starting in 19th. So he has only got the pair of Gravel Shed Racing Lamborghinis ahead of him in the race. We could see Mitch Hathaway come from 19th, potentially be on in the podium come the end of the race.
Yeah, that's a good result for him so far. Coming back to your point there, Michael, as well with regards to the pits and scratching their head as to why you wouldn't take tyres and just take a fuel load. Lewis Wedding, if you remember correctly, him and Ozrob were some of the last men to stop in that in the opening sequence of stops. They came in at about 56 minutes remaining, so they went pretty deep into their first stint, and they're all checking up here again for this issue with the safety car. But they came in very, very late, so Wedding's tyres are not all in all that bad a shape. Interesting to see that Ozrob and Lewis Wedding have gone 2 completely different strategies here. Ozrob's decided to stay out with the track position. Lewis Wedding's decided to try and get track position, but with worn rubber. But he's got a couple of guys behind him now that have gone the full service and have got the benefit of the green tyre. So this is going to be really different.
Wedding's made the smart choice here, in my opinion. Even though he has tyres that are slightly older, these tyres are only an extra. Sorry, it was lap 24 that everyone came in.
Yeah,
and Wedding
on lap 20.
On lap 20. So they're only he's only going to get tyres that are 4 laps newer. I think that's a good idea for him because he is, as Brendan Ross gets a 10-second stop and go penalty.
Yep.
What for him that has done is it's got him ahead of Xeris, it's got him ahead of Devonish, it's got him ahead of Foley, and there is several lapped cars in between that as well.
Yeah,
Running
and we're
right
back
behind line Mitch as we
Yep.
go to green.
That'll be the reason why Brendan Ross got a 10-second stop go, is because he was out of position coming to the green flag. So as we watch the Mitch Hathaway battle, he tries to fend off Lime Mitch. So it's interesting that those two have found each other again as well in all of this.
Oh yeah, this would be tasty. Let's keep eyes on this as we go down turn.
Devonish has just very sneakily got past, or he almost sneakily got past Brenton Foley back in the field. There's just an absolute madhouse of cars back there.
And here goes
Lapped
Will
cars,
Devonish
some of
again.
these cars are in possession.
Oh, looking at the inside of
Xeris
Foley.
right behind them as well.
Yeah,
and all these cars behind them, Steve Burko and BDS and Brendan Ross, they're all position cars. They're all right behind these guys. Zach Ross in 7th at the moment with some very hard hitters behind him. He's not long for 7th place.
Foley's got a stop go over his head as well here. I'm just wondering if Michael, if you wouldn't mind just diving off to the other chat channels just to see if there's anything that's happened there that we're not aware of, because we saw Brendan Ross get one. We're not sure why Brenton Foley has one as well. Maybe they were slightly out of position. Maybe the live steward may need to revisit and look at those penalties. I think it actually, the one for Brendan Ross is not there, so maybe it was actually Brenton Foley who's got the stop go.
Yeah, I'll do some investigation there as we see Ross lose a position to Foley as they go through the flip-flop. Now he's got Devonish on the outside, and Devonish wraps around the front of him. That makes a great move into the turn 12, 13, and then into the boomerang. Now Ross has got his AMG compatriot Xeris immediately behind, and he's quickly dropped like a stone through the field.
There's Osrob, Lime Mitch there, and Lime Mitch has been overtaken by Hathaway using that traffic as a pit.
Look at this.
Look at this.
Massive gaggle of cars on the front straight.
So I think that's Brock Harvey there, which is the BMW, which is very smartly got out of the way as we now go 2 by 2 into the first corner. Mitch Hathaway takes the inside line, and now Lime Mitch is blocking Lewis Wedding behind them. This is all nose-to-tail sort of stuff, and this is all for position as they file down the hill into turn 3. Everyone steps a little wide. Mitch gets a little bit of a slapper on, and now we see from above, at least on my screen, they all managed to get into a bit more order heading down to the bowl at the bottom of the hill. But this is mad stuff here for the tail end of the top 5.
And then there's a bit of more mad stuff going on further down the order too. Will Devonish has had a moment. He's gone all the way down to 13th. Xeris has gone down to 8th. So there's been a lot of shuffling in this mid-pack as this race really starts to heat up now right in the mid-pack. As you're saying, Wedding's giving Lime Mitch to hurry up.
Did we find out about the penalties for Foley and such?
Just been told by Rhodey, a mate in the booth, that they should be cleared because one of the drivers messed up their wave around. So all these penalties should hopefully be cleared, and we should be fine to race on from here.
All right, well, while we look into those penalties, hopefully if you guys can keep having a bit of a look and see what you can do, that would be with the battle that we're watching on screen as Wedding gives Lime Mitch a hurry up and tries to send it down here at the corner, and he's just going to get his elbows out, sends Mitch a little bit wide, and then Wedding's going to get away with that one there, I think.
There's a little nudge there, and Lime Mitch is clearly not happy with those lights flashing away there. So we'll see what's going on. This has really advantaged Steve Bolger. Steve Bolger's got a 5-second lead now over his teammate Osrob. And Mitch Hathaway now up 16 positions and still holding on to 3rd.
Yeah, it was... I think Bolger was lucky that he had 2 or 3 lapped cars between him and the rest of the field. So it's actually worked out very nicely for him in all this. Wedding, remember, he took that pit stop. He's already back up to 4th position. So he might be in a very good strategy position. Of course he is. He's Lewis Wedding. He's the one that thinks about these things. But they're 4th place for him, and then just immediately behind is Lime Mitch, who's holding up now Brenton Foley. So giving Lewis Wedding a bit of breathing room here as Foley looks to the inside of Lime Mitch. Almost makes contact there as Lime Mitch closes the door. But yeah, very intriguing stuff here with everyone on these different strategies.
Well, the thing is, I think you've got Bolger in the box seat for this race now because he didn't pit when his rivals for that position did. And they're going to be, they're going to be able to go longer. But Bolger is building such a lead already. And we saw that the only people who were staying with him were Foley and Xeris, who are currently in 5th and 7th, dealing with Wedding and Lime Mitch respectively. We've got Mitch Hathaway and Osrob who have bumped up a few positions due to those others pitting. So really absolute box seat for Bolger with the fact that everyone still needs to pit once.
Exactly, and one thing that makes all these strategy games very easy is car pace, and Steve Bolger's got that in spades at the moment. So he's been free to run his own race from the head of the field for the entirety of the race, and hasn't had to get involved in any other strategy battles, whereas Lewis Wedding especially has had to outthink his opponents. That's why, even though he's hasn't got the lap pace, he's up in 4th position, but still a fair way to go.
Looks like that penalty has also been removed by the live steward for Brenton Foley as well, as a couple of drivers decide to dive for the pit lane in all of this as well, a bit further back. I think there might be some lap runners potentially coming in. Was that Wedding?
That's Wedding and Xeris and Ross. So this is the play to get to the end of the race from here.
Yep. Now, and Zach Ross is coming in as well.
A bit too early.
I'm surprised now because Wedding and Xeris came in on the last stop. Maybe this is just a top off. Was that just a top off of fuel for Wedding? Did he not take tyres again?
Is he going to run the entire race with one set of tyres?
No, he
has changed tyres once. Was that a stop? Xeris didn't change tyres. Were they stop and go penalties potentially?
No, they weren't stop and go penalties. They were all fine. I'm actually just going back to have a look at the Lewis Wedding replay on the other monitor just to see what on earth happened at the stop. Did Wedding actually come in and not take tyres? This is what I'm more worried about than anything.
He definitely didn't take tyres.
That is bold. That is bold at this stage of the race.
Can they make it to the end from here, though? There's still 36 minutes to go, plus the lap after that.
It'll be close. In
Xeris didn't take tyres either. Sorry, gents. Xeris did not take tyres either. So that's actually rather different because Wedding has not taken tyres on both those stops. Xeris took full service last time they came in and has not taken tyres again. So they've obviously done the math, worked out that they can get to the end of this race only just with the amount of fuel left in the tank.
It'll be so tight. It'll be stupidly tight because, as you said, it's the 35 and a half minutes plus an additional lap afterwards. So as Bagsy mentioned earlier, you could see another 3.5 minutes added to the end of this race. Now, in the real world, GT3 cars can get to around 65, 70 minutes on fuel, depending on the track. I'm not going to expect this to be a very high fuel consumption track because it's got all these open corners, so you're not going to be on full throttle a lot of the time. But really, this is going to be at the absolute border of what is possible in a GT car. So Lewis Wedding, Xeris, and Zach Ross are going to have to be absolutely feather-footed for the remaining 34 minutes of this race if they're going to be able to get to the end.
And look
at the time. Bolger is 36 seconds ahead of Wedding, and we know that pit stop's going to be 50 seconds to a minute. So at the moment it's looking good, but that's a big if. I don't think they can make it at 36 minutes.
I think Lewis can make it. I'm not sure about Xeris. And while this is happening, I'm just going to direct us to the battle for third between Foley and Hathaway. In fact, as I say that, Foley goes down the inside at turn 7 and gets the move done pretty easily in the end. So that was pretty clean from Foley. Hathaway just sitting in the wheel tracks straight away. So Foley's working his way up the field. But yeah, I'm not sure it would take an extraordinary amount of fuel saving in order to get to the end of the race from here.
Here's that send from Brenton Foley, just waited for Hathaway to move to the racing line to take the preferred line through turn 7, and as the door opened he just took his chance and walked straight through that open door. So nice pass by Brenton Foley. Moves back up into the podium positions for I think the second or third time this race. He spent a fair bit of his time in second place. That pit stop sequence compiled with the safety car period has just thrown that up a little bit. At the moment finds himself in third place. Great to see there's a nice plethora of people watching this on the live stream on YouTube. Good to have you all aboard, guys. Please let us know if the stream is a little bit choppy. We have had a few of the streams over the last couple of weeks that have been a bit choppy, but if there's any performance issues, please do let us know. We're doing our best to tidy them up.
Just going to head us back to the battle for 9th and 10th. Lewis Wedding and Will Devonish almost getting into tangles with each other.
And Brock Harvey.
Devonish is...
and Xeris has been bought. And Wedding's in again. Oh, wow. That was a bit of an express entry for Lewis Wedding. He had 2 wheels in the grass. This now, I think he's realised the tyres are not going to make it. Or is it a fuel and tyres? Nope, it's tyres. So that's what we suspected was going to happen there, that he couldn't make it based on that particular set of boots.
What a mad 10 seconds that was, with Brock Harvey in the mix there. Xeris and Will Devonish basically bumping each other into Lewis Wedding and that pit entry. What the absolute heck? Yeah,
I'm not sure what Wedding's entirely mucked up his strategy here, and I'm not sure if it was something to do with the game or if it was something to do with he's just got over eager on his pit strategy. But he's stopped now 3 times in the last 6 laps.
that is very un-Lewis Wedding like.
Yeah, it's
Maybe
not,
because the pressure's on, maybe because he doesn't have the pace, so he's trying to overdo it in strategy, and he's made a mistake.
I think the mistake probably was not taking tyres when he needed to take the tyres, and this is he's probably realised that they can't make it from here. I know he was caught up in this battle with Will and Xeris right now, and then obviously the Brock Harvey car getting in the way made a little bit of a meal of things, but it's going to take an awful effort for Lewis Wedding to come back from here. Yes, Steve Bolger's going to have to stop and once more, but he will have saved a little bit of fuel under that safety car, and he did come in after 30 minutes had elapsed on the clock as well. So this last stop for Steve Bolger, I'm probably expecting to come around the about the 22 to 25 minute mark in proceedings if he's been able to conserve a little bit of tyre and conserve a bit of fuel being out in front.
And on top of that as well, there's the safety car period in there as well, so
Correct.
he's probably had the opportunity to do that. Liam Mitch has come in, made his last pit stop of the race, so we'll keep track of where he pops out. Yeah, at this stage, Bolger, I wouldn't say unbeatable, but he's certainly looking very comfortable out the front there.
And
we'll drive through penalties for Lewis Wedding.
To compound matters for Lewis Wedding, he's been handed a drive-through penalty now. He is now down in 16th place, would you believe it, on the list.
That is keeping in mind that a lot of people ahead of him will definitely need to pit again, and there are 10 people in front of him within a minute, and their pit stops will be about that long. So
I'm just having
he's a long way down, but yeah, that drive-through's not going to help.
I think the drive-through may also have been for potentially exiting the pit lane too quickly, because I can't see a track cut anywhere on the track, or he did run wide a little bit at turn 11, but I don't believe he may have just avoided the pits altogether. So he's actually now in the pit lane serving that penalty as we speak.
What a disaster this has turned out into for Lewis Wedding.
The championship leader, most importantly, as well. This is, as it stands right now, this is going to, as we see, Will Devenish making a move on the lapped car of Termo, the number 51 Aston Martin. Is that for position? Actually, you're right. That is for position, and Zeros followed him through as well. So very smart driving as the door was opened by Devenish to let Zeros come along as well. Very, very nicely done.
Remember, Devenish has made a mistake and is down the order, which is why he's now battling with Xeris, who took his second pit stop very early. So effectively, effectively Xeris is a pit stop ahead of the 2 cars he's battling against, as we've also got Mitch Hathaway in the pits to take his last stop on lap 32.
Luke Joyner also.
And Luke Joyner. Yeah, effectively Xeris is a pit stop ahead of the 2 people he's battling with. But remember, that is with a massive question mark over fuel.
Huge question mark over fuel. But we'll just have to see how he goes with this one.
Did take an extra pit stop in that cycle, similar to Lewis Wedding as well, which is why he ended up so far back.
Bagsy's actually correct there, because when the pits opened under the safety car period, Wedding and a bunch of others came in, and then Will Devenish came along and struggled to get into his pit bay. We saw it as Devenish makes a little bit of a mistake, and Xeris goes into the side of him at turn 7. Xeris goes into the side of Will Devenish at turn 7. The door was open, and the opportunity was there. He just couldn't get down the inside and couldn't get the car stopped in time on the apex. So here it is from the bumper cam of Xeris. You'll see Will Devenish as they're coming out of 6 up to 7 now. Devenish just pinches the brakes, so the gap was there. Xeris just understeered a little bit off the apex and just clattered into the side of the Lamborghini there. So the door was open, he just couldn't walk through it.
Yeah, it's a bit of 6 of one, half a dozen of the other there. So obviously Xeris seen the door open and just dived for it, whereas Will's tried to shut the door as not Hathaway, Xeris is walking through it. So it's one of those classic racing incidents, I think, unfortunately for the pair of them, because they both lost a fair amount of time because of that.
Yeah, I think you're probably right there, Michael. I would say it's both parties have still got a little bit to think of there. Will tried to probably close the door just a little bit too late when Xeris was already there, but also Xeris probably just committed an extra couple of Ks too much, and the car just understeered a little bit. It'll be picked up as a racing incident.
Heading towards the front, Ozrob is now right on the tail Brenton Foley's right on the tail of Ozrob. Remember, Brenton Foley did pit when Ozrob stayed out, which is how Ozrob's in second place at the moment, but he's being monstered by Brenton Foley, and it looks like a matter of time before this position is Foley's.
Well, this could make or break Foley's race potentially as well, with teammate being a rear tail gunner for the man in the lead at the moment.
Yeah, I was about to make that exact same point. The longer Ozrob can hold up Foley here, not necessarily hold up in terms of blocking or anything, but just making it difficult to pass, the better it is for Bolger at the head of the field to keep that gap as wide as possible. They're coming in through the boomerang nose to tail, and then they've got Zach Ross just ahead as well, so they're going to have to try and navigate Zach Ross as traffic while
Zach Ross gets out of the way very well, and Ozrob taking some ultra defensive lines is really going to help Foley here.
He's going to have to be really careful too with his defence, Ozrob. You're only allowed the one move. Now, the racing line is usually off to the left here, which is where Foley's going. And he's going to try the long way around here at turn 1. Is Ozrob going to fight it? Yes, he is. So Foley now tries to switch back. Nothing open there. The next opportunity is going to be, as they exit 2, down into 3. He's got to get a good run out of this corner here. They both stay on the black stuff, which is good to see. Now, Foley's going to try and set Ozrob up, probably for an over and under here if he can get it done. He's not going to go around the outside like Lime Mitch did on Mitch Hathaway twice earlier in the race, but he hasn't been able to make that one materialise. The next opportunity will be down at turn 7, Ferradura, so they'll come out of 5 now and go through the kink at 6.
Got a great run here.
Yep, and now the opportunity is 7, and Ozrob's awake to it. And that's a very, very nice defensive line here. Now, Foley will probably try and out-drag him maybe up to 8, which is the next opportunity at the flip-flop.
We haven't seen the Viper really strong in a straight line. In comparison, the Lamborghini has that ability. So while Ozrob is a bit slower in the corners, as Foley just tags a bit of grass and gets sideways. While he's a bit slow in the corners, he can get off the corners really, really quickly. So Foley is really going to have to outthink Ozrob here as he tries to go outside, then inside. Ozrob closes the door on him, and it's as you were yet again.
This is a fantastic little scrap going on here. Great exhibition of defensive driving by Ozrob, putting his car in all the right places. There's plenty of people in AMS Oz that are renowned for making it very, very difficult to pass. I'm supposedly one of them. Looks like Ozrob's probably adding to that list as well.
Oh, I think Foley's getting a little frustrated here because he's
starting to... I think there was a little mistake from Ozrob as well that might have given Foley a bit of heart as well, but it's not quite enough. Yeah, there's that Lamborghini straight line speed just makes it so difficult.
Yeah.
Side note, out the front, Wedding was just lapped by our race leader, Bolger.
That's a rubbing insult into injury, isn't it, if that's the case? Yeah. We're just staying with the second and third place battle at the minute just to see where this all shakes out. Yeah, Foley's getting really, really antsy now. Is he going to try the Mitch line around the outside this time? Yes, he is, but he didn't quite get it right. He just tagged the left rear of Ozrob just very, very gently. Didn't upset the cars too much. But he's got the blinkers on now. He wants that second place. This is his best opportunity. This is how close he was last time, and he didn't get the move done. Ozrob planted it very smartly. Now Foley looks at the inside, but it's just left it a little bit too late.
Yeah, I would almost suggest for Foley just giving Ozrob half a second at this point, just taking a bit of a step back and having a think and giving yourself some room to make the pass. Now, Ozrob's made a little bit of a mistake, which might make this all a bit moot, but Foley goes onto the grass again and loses all that time. So what Foley's doing here is because he's so close to the rear of that Lamborghini wing, whenever Ozrob slows up, he's got nowhere to go. Whereas
Ozrob had to go really defensive there, though, so Foley's going to have a better run out of the corner here. Can he shove his nose up? He can't. He's trying so hard. The problem is he needs to make this overtake now, though, because the gap is now 10 seconds.
Time is running out. The gap's gone up 2 seconds in the last 2 laps because, as we said before, it's almost like the rear tail gunner effect.
Bolger pits.
All right, and what does Foley do? Foley goes through. So now, Brenton Foley did not come in when the safety car was out last, and I was right when I suspected.
No, Foley did. Bolger didn't.
Bolger didn't. So I was right when I suspected that Steve Bulge would come in somewhere around the 22 to 25 minutes remaining mark, and that's the case. There's been...
He's gone round, he's gone round!
Now that's
He got a bit sideways on the exit of turn 2, and then there was nowhere for Foley to go. There might have been a little bit of contact, but he spun it on the exit of turn 2, and he's lost the lead of the race.
Well, here we go. Time to have a look at bonnet cam for Brenton Foley. Now, there was a lap traffic ahead. That was not a factor here. I think Ozrob maybe just, he gassed it up too much. Foley was not in the frame at all. And around goes the Lamborghini. So
certainly not to start, but there looked like, at least from the camera shot I saw, that there was a little bit of contact.
I don't think you can put that on Foley though.
No, not at all.
It was already happening for Ozrob.
Yep, correct.
Interesting note is that Bolger he's come out of the pits 10 seconds behind Xeris. Now we know Xeris was he's the most marginal person on fuel, and he pitted at the same time that Wedding did. So if Xeris can manage to keep this gap, or at least stop it from Bulge from passing him in the next 20 minutes plus one lap, and save that fuel, it'll be an incredible drive.
The thing is, though, Xeris's lap times have been in the mid to low 45s since he's made that pit stop. In comparison, let's have a look at Steve Bulger's times at the head of the field, and it was also into the 45s. So, the gap isn't really changing, at least prior to the pit stops. But we may have to see. We'll keep a close eye on that to see whether or not Xeris
goes into the pits.
Yeah, whether or not Xeris has to back off the pace to conserve fuel.
Well, let's keep an eye on that. There's only just under 21 minutes remaining. We're going to try and do the math here just to work out how many laps that will be.
I think if Xeris has been going at that pace, he's going to be having to pit again. If you can't be hitting that pace and fuel save for 36 minutes, surely.
Yeah, they're doing lap times right now in the high 40, the mid to high 45s and low 46s. So, I mean, even if you take 20 minutes or so remaining and put that into the equation, you're going to end up somewhere with around 12 or 13 laps remaining, which will mean will get us to that about 50 laps on the books. Now, we were expecting we were going to get somewhere around 45 to 49, just judging by the pace that we'd seen through some of the practice sessions earlier in the week. We might actually get right smack on 50, which would be an awfully big achievement in a 90-minute race, especially with a safety car intervention as well. It'll feel like forever for these guys.
Ooh. Just quickly, Ozrob's just exited the pits. He's come out between Liam Spencer and Mitch Hathaway. Remember, Mitch Hathaway was in third place behind him prior to the pit stop, so quite a way behind him as well. So it obviously lost a bit of time with the spin there, but Mitch Hathaway also hasn't been making as many waves since his pit stop.
Hathaway is going through to the end of the race though, so it's very important for Ozrob to come out there, because that is for position.
Yeah.
I believe I didn't check Liam Spencer when he came in. I think he may need to stop again. Will Devonish does not.
Yep. Well, there goes Ozrob down the inside of Liam Spencer. Hathaway's trying his best to follow here.
Oh, this is not good for Hathaway. He wants that position, and in fact, Ozrob's had to go defensive as Spencer goes around the outside into that duo of corners there.
There's contact! There's three-way contact! There's three-way contact! All of them gone! That was brewing from a couple of corners ago. Now, I'm sorry if I've woken up everybody in my house, but that was very, very interesting as soon as that happened, and that was extremely messy. So there was the initial contact. The initial contact was Liam Spencer getting into the back of Ozrob just as they checked up. And as they went around here, Ozrob went wide. Mitch Hathaway tried to get up the inside, got into Liam Spencer, who then got into Ozrob.
It almost looked like Ozrob spun on his own, so it looks like Liam Spencer and Mitch Hathaway...
There was definitely a hit there, yeah. It was the Hathaway and Spencer coming together, and they bumped into Ozrob, who was on the outside, and all three of them went round in a perfect pirouette. I had the helicopter angle there at that time, and that's cost all of them quite a bit. Who it hasn't cost is Liam Mitch, who's now up into 6th. Will Devonish now in 5th.
Man, what a mess. What a great race so far, though.
That was extremely, extremely messy. And Ozrob, in actual fact, had done himself a disservice because he'd gone very, very wide at that corner. So the opportunity was there for Liam Spencer to get underneath, which he was trying to do, but unbeknownst to him, Hathaway was trying to do exactly the same thing to Liam Spencer, and it turned to chaos. That's a simple fact of the matter. The passing moves were on there, 2 people trying to make passes on 2 other people at the same time. 3 cars just does not go.
It's just very hard to assign blame there because they were all just absolutely gunning for it and they all saw opportunities. And you could argue that Osrob had a bit of a mistake there going that wide, and unfortunately it cost him with the other 2 having the collision on his inside. He was an innocent party almost there, but if you make that mistake, then suddenly off you go. But that was just incredible, and all 3 of them just off in perfect harmony.
The one thing that comes to my mind is I'm seeing my fellow commentator Hans Brunswick in the chat, who's we call him the encyclopedia of all things supercars. If he was in the commentary box here, he would have been saying they're all gone, they're gone, they're all gone, just like Mark Scaife did. That's precisely what that sort of moment, I think, calls for at that point in time.
100%. Wow. So where are we at with this race now? Where is the main challenge coming from? We've got Brenton Foley 32 seconds at the head of the field, but he definitely still has a pit stop to take. He last pit when we had the safety car. Then it is Xeris who's 6 seconds ahead of Steve Bolger, and there's a massive question mark over whether or not Xeris gets to the finish.
Well, Xeris has been about 1.2 seconds a lap slower, so he is not at that rate. Is going to get caught by Bolger very, very soon. So I think Xeris is trying to fuel save this.
Yeah, that's
not going to
get him
to
the
Bolger. Race win. But
well,
he's not going to get him the race win, but it's going to get him a podium if he can save to the end.
Have a look at Foley's lap times though here, Michael. Foley's last time was a 45.5. This time around, as he gets to the line, he's done a 45.0 compared to Xeris's 46.0 last time around. So the last lap, Xeris was a half a second slower than Foley. But then we've got to wait a little bit of time for him to come across the line now. Bolger's actually purpled the first sector on the last lap, and he's had a pretty decent middle sector as well. His middle sector's 0.8 of a second better than Xeris. I think Bagsy's right here. Xeris is going into fuel conservation mode to see if he can stretch it to the end.
The problem with that is he should have been going in fuel conservation mode from the minute he made that pit stop. He put in far too many laps at higher speed to really save that amount of fuel that you need to give yourself a little bit of a buffer. Now, looking at Steve Bolger as he crosses the line here, a 44.5, so half a second quicker than Foley at the head of the field, a full 2 seconds quicker than Xeris last time around. He has really got the fire beneath his butt as he's sliding down the hill through turns 2 and 3. So Bolger still with the outright lap pace. We could see we're going to see him get onto the tail of Xeris almost immediately, and whether or not he's able to outstrip Foley as well, who probably still has a pit stop to take. Let's say definitely still has a pit stop to take, which we should be seeing soon. We could see a gap of 10-15 seconds potentially between Bolger and the rest of the field.
The real question is how much time is Foley going to need in the pits, because I would say his best option is not taking tyres to save that 10 seconds and the bare minimum of fuel. I think the pit lane transit time is about 15 seconds without any service or thereabouts. So if you think he would need, for say he comes in next lap, 13 minutes of fuel or 14 minutes of fuel, it's going to be 20 seconds stationary, which would put him right there with Bolger, but with worse tyres, and so he would almost certainly not get it. So I think this is Bolger's race to lose now.
Yeah, I agree. And let's not forget as well that coming in, slowing down into the pit lane and speeding up once you get out of it is time that you're going to be losing as well, because Bolger's going to be going down that main straight at a very fast rate of knots compared to whatever Foley is doing coming into and out of the pit lane.
Gents, I'm just going to break up the broadcast for a minute here. That we're just starting to lose some pitches. I'm not sure what precisely is going on here, but Bagsy and I know what this means. We've had this before, so we're just going to go back to our holding screen just for a moment here, because we're just starting to have some of these gremlins that we used to have, I think about 2 years ago, Bagsy, when the server just decides it's time to start causing havoc, or the AMS decides to start causing havoc, and I think that's just purely by the number of cars that we've had in the server tonight.
Yeah, it does seem to, after a certain point is reached, it does seem to just slow down a bit. And yeah, your only option is to restart the game, unfortunately, and you lose the timing on screen. But our timing will still be working at amsoz.liveraces.com, and you'll be able to have some up-to-date timing there.
Yep, so we've actually got another screen that's just keeping things going for us at the moment here in Broadcast Central. So if we decide to go and have a bit of a look at what's happening there, it still is a lead to Brenton Foley at the moment over Xeris and Steve Bolger. We go back to that battle you're talking about between Xeris and Steve Bolger. It's just very, very slowly starting to be eaten out of by the man aboard the Gravel Shed Racing Lamborghini at the moment.
Hot. No one heard that. You might have heard me umming and ahhing in the background. I just saw Roadhog have a half spin in the first corner and almost collect Mitch Hathaway, but that's all been worked out. I think the battle isn't going to be between Xeris and Brenton Foley. It's going to be between Xeris and Steve Bolger. In fact, they're almost in the same camera shot as I'm looking from the helicam.
Xeris's pit.
Oh, there you go.
So Xeris was not able to make it.
That cleanses that little argument there then, doesn't it? So that means Steve Bolger goes through to P2, and is that going to actually then promote Brenton Ross through to P3? Let's keep an eye on that one now.
And he's definitely going to get ahead here, because Xeris is changing tyres, so that's at least 10 seconds, and he's only 15 seconds back down the road for Brenton Ross. I do not know when Brenton Ross last pit. I wasn't keeping track of him because he was so far out of the running.
Brenton Ross
kicked off.
He pit at the same time as Xeris and Wedding on lap 28. So we should also be expecting a pit stop for him. It would appear to me, at least, that Xeris has pulled the plug early. He's realized that he's going to lose more time than what he could possibly gain, and he's pulled the plug. So whether or not Brenton Ross also pulls the plug, we'll find out later on.
And I think that there is a 10-second gap or so between Devonish and Xeris, and I think Xeris, with his much fresher tyres, is going to be able to reel that in quite quickly, as BDS gets another drive-through penalty for corner cutting.
That's a real shame. I do like the car that BDS is running, the Rover Racing BMW. It's one of my favorite GT3 cars and one of my favorite GT3 teams, just as a complete aside.
With 10 minutes to go, Brenton Foley crosses the line, still in first, and he has been increasing this lead he has over Steve Bolger. It was 33 seconds a few laps ago. Now it's 36 seconds. Even though Bolger had a fastest previous lap, Foley overall has increased this lead.
So is it Foley increasing his lead to Bolger, or Foley increasing his lead overall because Xeris has taken a pit stop? Because I'm pretty sure the gap has been coming down. It's just that we've been a bit masked to it because Xeris has been in the middle.
Sorry, I was looking at the wrong one there. So yeah, you're right. That has come down slightly. And Brendan Ross looks like he's made a mistake somewhere, because Will Devonish has managed to get past him. So I think Brendan Ross is just on some tyres that are older than Devonish and
fuel saving as well.
Fuel.
Yeah, I'd say definitely, because he was on the same strategy as Xeris, and he looks like he's committed. So I think he's just basically let Will Devonish go, and that's what it looks like as I scroll back through the replay. Just let him go.
Brendan Ross has just come in now, guys, as well. So
Yep.
So he's come out of. You didn't need that as well. So that then sorts that little equation out.
So this will promote Lime Mitch up to fifth. No, it won't, because he's pit.
Oh, that's a weird one.
Had to pit as well.
Now, he was the first of the, I'd say, window stoppers. So he pitted on lap 31, and that was about 31 or 32 minutes from the finish. So that you should be able to make it from there. So that's a bit of a confusing one to me. What that has done is that's actually given, I think, Wayne and Mitch Hathaway a bit of a gift, as Mitch Hathaway dives down the inside of Wayne into turn 1 to take 7th place.
Mitch Hathaway's had such a good race today, and it's unfortunate that he was in that massive accident that was there with Osrob and
Liam Spencer.
Spencer, was it?
Yeah, Liam
and
Spencer.
So that's a shame, as Roadhog has gone off track as well. And Lewis Wedding's back up to 10th, so his recovery drive is slowly making there, but almost certainty that Wedding's going to lose the championship lead here today.
Yep. Back to live pitches now, gentlemen. So we just got Mitch Hathaway on screen now. For the viewers at home that are still trying to keep tabs on things here, there is approximately 8 minutes and 12 seconds remaining, as the time, as you can see at the top, has gone stationary, and we're actually on the race leader is actually on lap 44. So we're keeping an eye on things as they go, but at the moment, this man still leads the way. Brenton Foley has an advantage. It's only a slender advantage. It's come down a little bit, I believe, from what I looked at. Actually, no, it's not slender anymore, actually. It's 34 seconds. That goes to show you how long it's been since I've had to do bits and pieces like get this back up and running, and I've lost complete track of time as to where everything is.
Yeah. But the important thing about the gap here is that we're expecting Foley to take a stop. His last pit stop was under safety car, 45 plus minutes away from home. So the fact that he's now gone 40 minutes on a tank of fuel is extreme in itself. So we're expecting him to take a stop any minute now.
Sorry to interrupt. The final podium position is about to come up for grabs. Because Xeris is closing on Will Devonish at 2 seconds a lap.
Wow.
Where is he at the moment? He's actually just out of back a shot as well. So there's Devonish on screen. There's John McDonald, and there's Xeris behind him. So a little bit of lap traffic for Xeris. As McDonald runs a bit wide, he'll get the blue flags, and he should just let Xeris by here down the inside, and he does.
Smartly there.
Very, very smartly. And then behind them, I think that might be the Brian Walsh car back there as well.
Correct.
That Xeris will have just dispatched before getting past John McDonald. So, yeah, there's your right, Bagsy. This gap is really starting to come down. And Devonish had a really bad sector in Sector 1 as well. That's where a lot of the time went. 2 seconds plus, 2.1 to be exact, got chopped out of the advantage just in Sector 1 alone.
I wonder if... when did Devonish have his last stop? Do you have that written down, Bagsy? Because the last stop I have recorded for him was under safety car.
I have that too.
Yeah.
I have him at lap 29.
Yep, that would have been safety car.
That would have been after the safety car. So that would have been the lap after Xeris, Wedding, and Ross tried to do that awesome
he came in. He came in again.
Yep.
When at one point when Wedding came in.
Yeah. So that's actually on pace then. So Xeris. This is actually really, really interesting. So Xeris is elected to take those second set of tyres, whereas Devonish is obviously still trying to fuel save to the end. So that could be very much up for grabs. What's surprising me as well still is that Foley hasn't come in. This is confusing to me. He must be fuel whispering or something, or just making fuel in the middle of that engine, because that doesn't make sense.
The Foley's defying logic right now. I get it from, they'll get the impression of. He's out there in front, and Steve Bolger's actually tucked up behind one of, I think it's Brock Harvey at the moment. So Foley's actually making a bit of advantage. Although that being said, here he comes. He couldn't make it.
There we go.
And
so
only
that
5 minutes 15 seconds remaining as well. So he's really left this to the last minute. He's stretched it as late as possible.
This will be such a short stop though.
And there'll be no tyres.
I had some technical gremlins of my own, so I can't see if he's taking tyres or not.
No, he's not taking tyres.
So just the barest amount of fuel, and he might still be able to get up ahead of
Steve Bolger.
He's already on the move.
Yep, splash and dash it is indeed. Brenton Foley is on the move. He's at the pit lane exit actually. Is he okay? Did he get okay?
Through the final corner.
Wow.
Yep. Foley comes out with this lead, but where is Steve Bolger?
There he goes.
Halfway down the main straight.
The gap is 7 seconds as he crosses the line, but that's going to come down as Bolger accelerates down the main straight. I'm just going to direct our attention to that battle for third. It is nose to tail now between Xeris and Will Devonish as they come through the boomerang onto the last couple of corners. A few corners ago, they were actually touching as we were concentrating on Bolger and Foley through the pit cycle. And it's looking very much like Xeris is going to have the upper hand as Devonish gets a bit of a slide on and has to go defensive. And Xeris is all over the back of this Lamborghini as they come down the main straight.
Look at that straight line speed from the Lamborghini, though. Even with the poor traction compared to Xeris, he's able to out-drag him down to the corner. So that one car length that he has in the lead is doing all of it. Xeris just needs to be able to plant his foot down somewhere and sneak a move down the inside. Very wide there, very wide for Devonish. That's going to cost him. Xeris is going to try to go around the outside. If the line Mitch moved to here, can he stick it? He's got better tyres. They bump together, but Xeris has the inside line now, and that position is going to be all Xeris's.
I was actually just having a bit of a look back to see whether or not Xeris actually got into the back of Will Devonish off the final corner. The answer to that was no. He actually did a pretty good job to stay off of Will Devonish there, and it's just Will that just lost it on his own by putting a wheel on the grass. So that's not over yet, though. Will's probably in a bit of fuel conservation mode of his own, but I think Xeris is probably just going to drive away over the next couple of corners, and probably a deserved podium after starting so high up the grid. That's probably where his expectations would have been, and that safety car would have thrown a spanner in the works. But he's driven pretty well to get back to third place. And meanwhile, we keep an eye on what's happening out in front because Steve Bolger is not taking time out of Brenton Foley. In actual fact, the outlap for Foley, aside from the first sector, was actually pretty good. He was only 2/10 slower than Bolger in sector 1 and 2, and he was actually
Bolger
5
had an
tenths
issue
quick.
in the last sector.
Yeah, he was 5 tenths quicker in sector 3, so he's maintaining his advantage here.
This is going to be an intriguing race into the end. Foley's has got a little bit of traffic ahead of him, and as I look to the track map, it looks like whereabouts is Bolger. He's also got a bit of traffic ahead of him as well, so we could see potentially traffic decide this race. But honestly, I don't think Bolger has the speed to overcome a 6-second gap in only 2 minutes left in the race.
No.
His tyres are so much fresher though. You think Foley's going to start having some issues, and you're wondering where he is on track cuts as well. We've seen both he and Bolger cut the track a couple of times, and this would be the worst time to get a
track cut
drive-through
yeah.
penalty, because that's going to cost you so much time. But then if you try and step back a bit and slow down a bit, then you're possibly going to introduce other mistakes. So it's such a delicate line to walk. Brenton Foley dispatched of Turmo, who was his traffic, fairly quickly, and it's going down to they're still not in the same picture though. I think once Foley's on the main straight, we might see Bolger in the background. But Bolger, he's done almost everything right today. This will be an absolutely brilliant drive and brilliant strategy from Foley. A wedding-esque strategy from Foley if he can get this done.
There he is, just in back of shot there. You're just about to call it bags. You're just coming. There was a couple of times where Bolger was just in the back of the picture. And there he is. And he's now somewhat, what's he up to now? It's about 6 seconds in arrears of Brenton Foley.
0.6 of a second that lap, Bolger gain.
And that's not going to be enough. This is going to be the penultimate lap, as we are only about 10 seconds into it and 50 seconds left. So as they cross the line this time around, it will be the start of the final lap of the 90 minutes of Curvelo. Just a quick update further down the field, we have lost Lime Mitch from the race. He looked to have a bit of a disconnect. Yeah, a real shame for Lime Mitch. Also, Luke Joyner had a bit of a spin, which has allowed Mitch Hathaway past him, and now he's in a battle for 7th place with the recovering Lewis Wedding. But we've got the headlights on for Foley as he passes Wayne, who's down in 12th place, and you can just see as that camera pans back in the background there, Steve Bolger as well, but it's not coming down quick enough. Actually, I say that, it's down a second this lap so far.
There was a bit of traffic for Brenton Foley there. He had to get past the Ferrari of Wayne Spencer as well, so that's probably where that second has come into play.
Yeah.
The time is about to expire.
Yep, it has done so now.
One lap after this one.
Yep, that means we will be a
50.
Yeah, nice 50 lap race, so a little bit higher than our expectation. And Steve Bolger is also just in back of shot. We just noted him just getting past Wayne Spencer as well. Drive-through penalty for Matt Schwass, so he's actually in this Gravel Shed racing team as well. So to compound matters for the Gravel Shed team, the man on pole is not going to win this race. Ozrob was in contention for a podium and then was caught up in that 3-car melee. And then now to rub salt into the wound, Matt Schwass has got himself a drive-through. Matt Schwass was down in 18th anyway. So that means he's probably not going to drop another spot. He was already 2 laps down. And the race leader has commenced the final lap.
So Foley has approximately 4 kilometres of racing left, 16 or so corners, and he still has a pretty decent 4-second gap from the looks of it. So that is... Well, this is a surprising victory, if I'm honest, because Bolger had this race in his pocket the whole time until Foley just kept on running and running and running.
The drive-through penalty for Wayne Spencer, so if he doesn't come to the line, that'll be a 30-second post-race. So
it seems that Foley had some magic fuel-generating powers today of not touching his throttle quite as much.
Zirus has come in for another stop, guys. Sorry to cut you off. Zirus has come in for another stop.
Oh, he's under fuel.
So he's under. Don't tell me he's under fueled. That's just handed 3rd place to Will Devonish.
And he's lost 4th place as well.
He's lost 4th place to Ozrob as well.
Mitch Hathaway is a bit far away to drop him down further, but still,
that's very unfortunate for Zirus. Mitch Hathaway, I think, just set a PB for himself on that particular lap as well. He was tracking pretty well. Luke
Joyner's still holding off Lewis Wedding as well.
Final couple of corners for Brenton Foley. He's making his way through Boomerang now and just two more corners to go. And now to the final corner from the helicopter shot. So, last year's champion in GT3 gets himself a win. This is actually his second win of the year in all disciplines in Automobilista Australia. Had a victory in TCR, yet to win in supercars, but chalks up a race win in the second round of GT3 World Series. Steve Bolger home in second. I'm sure he'll be very disappointed when we have a chat to him in the post-race interviews as to what could have been with sitting on the pole and not being able to make the most of it. Well, Devonish is still a few way from home, but this is probably a pretty good drive.
Third.
Very, very solid third.
Considering where he was in a similar spot to Lewis Wedding, and he's done a lot better than Lewis Wedding has as he comes out the final corner. He's ended up on the podium, which is where we thought Lewis was going to end up. So a very good third place for Devonish. Osrob is going to take fourth place, and Uziris fifth. Luke Joyner is in seventh, still holding off Lewis Wedding with about 3 corners to go.
This is the battle to the flag. Was Wedding going to make a dive down the inside here at the second to last corner? He is. So there's the move being made. Oh, and a bit of contact, and Joyner's out of commission after that one, I think. So Wedding will get seventh.
A few points salvage there for Wedding. So it's all going to help him as this championship progresses.
Yep, Joyner's not too happy about it, I don't think, but
I think that was his own loss there.
Yeah.
Bentley 4 Motorsport are going to get Brendan Ross home into position number 9, and actually behind Billy Dougal Salonga is just holding off Roadhog from ARW for 10th place at the minute. So despite all of BDS's drive-throughs and indiscretions, he's going to finish inside the top 10.
Look at the three of them there after 90 minutes of racing. Less than a second between them.
That's a good result for those guys. And then we start getting into they were the last of the guys to get home on the lead lap as well, believe it or not. They all got home lap 50.
Chomo, who's reversing quite fast around the track.
Yeah, this is a custom of his. He likes to go around the track backwards, but I think he's actually getting a push from Steve Burko here because I think he may be out of fuel. Zach Ross home in 13th as we run through the rest of the finishes. Burko 14th. Liam Spencer on debut in the series in 15th. He was tracking really, really well right up until about the 3/4 distance mark where he ended up involved in that 3-car melee. Wayne Spencer, his father, actually got a 30-second post-race penalty for the drive-through, so that actually means he finishes behind his son. That's going to be a bit of an interesting discussion after the race in that household. Brock Harvey in 17th, Matt Schwass in 18th, and then the last 2 men home, John McDonald, again another man on debut, and Brian Walsh busy doing donuts on the trackside grass. But take nothing away from your race winner. Brenton Foley's at the end of the lane, along with Steve Bolger. Here comes Will Devonish, and we're going to have a nice little photo to salvage for the picture frame. Liam just needs to get out of the way. That'll just be something we're going to take a photo of a little bit later on. Nice to see the boys are doing that for us. Something that we've brought up in the supercars this year. And there they are as Wedding's... Lewis Wedding, for the first time in a long time, has a bit of a shocker of a race there, gentlemen.
Yeah, not exactly what the previous championship leader would have liked, but we've got the now current championship leader in the booth with us. Brenton Foley, congratulations on your race victory this evening. Tell us a bit about the race from your perspective tonight.
Oh, it was a wicked race up until the safety car, then kind of went all to crap for a little bit, but I was kind of extremely lucky that that my penalty got removed. I don't know if Nether probably didn't see the other ones because AMS is just AMS, but yeah, like I was just all over the place.
Yeah, so take us through that strategy call to pit under the safety car there. I mentioned on the broadcast it was a really awkward time. What made you decide to jump into the pits at that point?
I knew I had good pace overall because right before the safety car, me and Xeris were trading fastest laps and we were really catching Bolger. So I knew on good tyres my car was pretty quick, and I knew the strength of the Viper is it has pretty good fuel economy. So I didn't think I could make it. I thought I'd obviously pit, and depending how long the safety car was out for, if the safety car was out for one more lap, I would have made it because it would have been a very slow lap that probably would have taken about 3.5, 4 minutes. But unfortunately, it was only out for 3 laps, and I had to do a little splash and dash. But I was just trying to manage the tires all the way to the end.
Yeah, speaking of that last fuel stop, how in God's name did you get 42 minutes to a tank of fuel? Like, that is ridiculous. Ridiculous.
Well, as I said, the Vipers, I was fuel saving a little bit. The Viper is good on fuel, but the massive sacrifice is tire life. It absolutely chews through the tires. That car, like in that 42 minutes, I think my tires were down to like just under 10% at the end.
Wow.
So yeah, it's a trade off, but I'm normally pretty good with a slidey oversteery car, and it paid off tonight.
Congratulations on taking the victory this evening.
Thanks very much.
Have we got Steve Bolger around? Not yet. So Bagsy, why don't you take us to the third place, man? Oh no, we've got Steve in the booth now. Bagsy, you can do Steve.
Steve, well, that was a pretty good race overall, apart from the final result not quite being what you'd wanted. But still, are you happy with the second place after that race?
I hate safety cars. Look, I had good pace tonight. It was going really well. It was actually just getting interesting because Foley was putting some pressure on in after the first pit stop to pick up the pace. So I was interested to see how it was going to work out. Then the safety car came out. Later, Foley took the brave strategy and made it work. So good luck to him. In the end, I was pretty happy with how it drove. Just yeah, the result didn't go that way.
Yeah, we saw that you elected not to pit under that safety car, which we thought was the right call as well, given that you've got the lead. You did seem that you had really no issues apart from just the fact that Foley had that sort of out there strategy that paid off for him.
Yeah, I made an error with the fuel in the last stop as well, and got the settings wrong and put about 10 laps too much fuel in, which cost me some time as well. Would have been a lot closer in the end. But yeah, it was a pretty clean run. Really have to tip my hat to all the lap guys. The traffic was excellent. I didn't get held up at all. It was really cooperative driving. Good stuff.
It was good to hear and good to see you with a brilliant run, really, and hopefully that a win for you in the GT3 series is just around the corner.
Fingers crossed. Thanks, boys.
And I'll throw it back to Floody for Devonish.
Yeah, Will Devonish, almost a surprise third place at the end of that race. Had a bit of an attritional race in the early half and then came back to finish on the podium. Tell us about your race.
Yeah, I cocked up my first stint. I turned it around at turn one. So unfortunately the safety car was a blessing and a curse, 'cause it brought me back into it and then it gave me a penalty. So yeah, I'm actually quite surprised getting fighting it way back to third. So really happy with the result.
Yeah, congratulations. You were one of the runners to elect to run long at the end and try and save your fuel. What made you choose that strategy while the others around you were trying to shorten that last stint?
Well, during my first stint, I realized the car was getting exceptional fuel economy. I was getting 24 laps out of the tank. So I thought, and towards the end of tire life, it was actually pretty fast. So I was like, bugger it, let's just go for it and hope for the best, and sort of actually worked out.
Awesome. Finally, how good is the racing GT3 series? I mean, we saw 25 entries tonight, and like myself, Nether, and Bagsy, we were constantly shouting at each other over the stuff that was happening. How is it for you in the driver's seat with this series, the strength that it is at the moment?
I keep being stuck with Xeris, and we're both quite aggressive drivers, so it's been a bit of biff and budge at my end. But yeah, the actual driving standard this year, I think it's carried on over the last few seasons. That it's just gotten better and better, and yeah, the guys we race with, you can trust to have around your car, and you can trust they're not going to push you off the track or anything like that. So it's great to have this bunch, and the actual field this time around is exceptional. We might need to talk about the amount of people rocking up because the servers are struggling a bit, but it's really good to have the amount of people rocking up as they are.
Yeah, I gotta say, from a sitting back and watching standpoint and commentating standpoint, this is definitely scratching that GT racing itch that I've been missing so far. So congratulations on your third place, Will, and yeah, echoing that statement, it's been great quality so far in these first two races.
Thank you guys for your work behind the mic.
Thank you. Back to Nether. Round out the show for us.
Thank you, gentlemen. And just having a look at the provisional point standings as we come out of our second round of 9 for the year. Just about to plug Lewis Wedding's result into focus here. So if you look down the order, he finished in 7th place after that. So the championship leader coming into tonight does unfortunately lose his advantage by virtue of the 7th place finish, and it is taken over by Brenton Foley by a solitary point from Steve Bolger. So 41 points, plays 40, with Lewis Wedding at the moment dropping to 3rd on 34. And then back to Will Devonish, 27, and Xeris on 24. That's the points that we've been able to calculate so far in the last couple of minutes while the interviews were taking place. Still a few more to be worked out, and a lot of drivers to add to that point score as well. So no doubt that'll happen during the week, and the points will be updated for all to see. But before we close out the show, a quick look ahead to what's coming up in the next little bit for Automobilista Australia. And the next show on the road is the TCAC Series, coming to you from Sandown International Motor Raceway. That's actually tomorrow night over on the Short Shift Podcast channel on YouTube. Super 2 Friday night from Pukekohe Park Raceway and over on the Loose 89 channel with Lewis Wedding at the controls. Track Day Challenge, this little fun series on a Monday night that gets underway every couple of Monday nights. That's from Barbagallo. There's no live stream for that one. And then to round out March, the 4th event on the list there, TCR Oz, going to Winton Motor Raceway. Second trip that TCR have had there. We were there last year, and we are back for more. This time, of course, TCR Oz is in the next-gen Marcus cars, so a little bit quicker. Are we going to see some lap times tumble? We will have to wait and see. But having a look at what lap times got produced tonight, just for the record, the qualifying lap record, a new qualifying lap record for the first ever qualifying lap record for Curvelo A. Steve Bolger's 1 minute 43.494, so a little extra thing for Steve Bolger to take with his second place tonight. And then Xeris set the fastest lap during the race, a 1:44.279. So despite the late pit stop, he's now got himself a race lap record for this circuit in Automobilista Australia history books. Thanks again to Josh Bagsy Bags and Michael the Floodman Zalavari for their continuing work on the GT3 this year. We'll be back in 2 weeks. And a reminder on the GT3 calendar, there it is. The 2 weeks from now is the 7th of April, 60-minute blast around the Red Bull Ring in Austria. And that's going to be quite a high number of laps in that one, I think, gentlemen. They are going to go very, very quickly.
Oh, yes. That track has been used in the past for European Le Mans Series as well. So great racing heritage in sports cars and something I'm very excited to see. That's one of my favorite tracks in the world, to be honest. So can't wait to see GT3 cars running through the hills of Spielberg.
Bagsy, a circuit we're intimately familiar with from our doings in ARW. We tend to like the Red Bull Ring, but it has thrown up its fair share of things for us in the past too, hasn't it?
Yeah, it certainly has. It's a very fun track to drive. And looking beyond that, one of the marquee events, the 2 hours at Mount Panorama, that's going to be one to look forward to as well, the 21st of April.
And a little history note there on Mount Panorama as well. It's actually only the third time that we've actually run GT3s for Mount Panorama. The very, very first race ever in Automobilista Australia history was a GT3 race around Mount Panorama, and of course we did have the Bathurst 3 hour at the beginning of 2019. So it hasn't had an official appearance in Automobilista Australia from the GT3 series. Now it finally gets its time to shine, and that comes up toward the end of April. We'll leave it there for the night. Thank you to everybody who stayed with us during the broadcast tonight, despite the trials and tribulations that we went through. I think my PC's headed for a reinstall as a result of what happened tonight. As always, please drive safely. Please continue to support your sim racing community in the difficult times that we have at the moment, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.